Maya.
Say hi to Pat.
Hi, Maya. Hi. Hi, you smiling.
Hey, are you swimming? Are you swimming? Oof, oof.
Swimming.
Alex, can you hear us?
No, they can't hear us. Okay, can you guys hear us at all?
We
Yeah,
can
we
hear
can hear
you,
you.
Ken.
Okay. Okay, so can you hear anyone else?
Can you hear me?
No.
I can hear Pat.
Okay, hang on, we're just dealing with a couple of minor technical issues. Okay, somebody over there say something.
Can you hear us now?
Can
I
hear
can hear
Maureen.
Councillor Swift. Yep.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Nicole?
Barely.
Not very good.
How about me?
Not very well either.
There's another microphone. Okay, now can you, okay, you want to try again, Nicole, see what we got?
Can you hear me now?
Not very well.
So,
Use your theater voice.
Okay.
all right, so we're going to call the meeting in order. First item is adoption of the agenda.
Move.
Second.
And any questions? And all those in favor? And that's carried, and we'll move on to delegations. We have 3 delegations tonight. We have a fairly lengthy agenda, so we'll try and keep you to about 10 minutes. And first up is Alana Mullally for the Comox Housing Needs Assessment. And she's on Zoom, so as soon as we get her set up here, we'll let her get rolling.
Yeah, she was there.
Yeah, we had her a minute ago, so.
Oh, we lost her.
She's trying to get back in, I think.
Okay. Well. Oh,
There we go.
Yeah. So Alana, can you hear us? Okay.
Yeah, her connection's really tough.
Could we, you want to move on to the second speaker and bring her back in when we get her straightened away? So Julie, are you good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on. We'll come back to Alana. We'll go to Julie.
Hi.
Just to the podium, please.
Right there. Right here.
Yes, that podium right there, because there's a microphone in the ceiling, and this is development during.
Hi there.
Hi.
Oh. Did we have
And I can
Alana?
just leave that there. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. First of all, my name is Julie Miksch, and I just want to thank you all for having me here today and to hear my presentation. I'm a local resident of the Comox Valley and have worked as an environmental consultant for the past 20 years. I have assessed undeveloped and partially developed lands for wildlife values for the provincial government, developers, industry, NGOs, throughout Vancouver Island, BC, and in the Comox Valley. And I have completed both eagle and heron assessments in Courtenay, right here in Comox, and for the regional district. So you might have seen my name on a few reports for eagle nests. I'm here today to discuss the importance of protecting environmentally valuable resources, such as songbirds, through preliminary site assessments and bird nest assessments as described by the Develop with Care program that was developed by the Ministry of Forests, Lands and Natural Resource Operations and the Ministry of Environment. So my first slide shows that document that was prepared actually initially in 2006, and then it was revised in 2014. This working group produced the document titled Environmental Guidelines for Urban and Rural Development, which was prepared for use by local governments, developers, landowners, and environmental organizations. So if you go to the next slide, one of the most pertinent chapters of this document in relation to my presentation today is section 4, environmentally valuable resources. The importance of preliminary site assessments of largely undeveloped lands is to help local governments and developers do the right thing by reducing their likelihood of non-compliance of legislation, such as the BC Wildlife Act, the Migratory Bird Convention Act, and the Species at Risk Act. However, my focus today will be primarily on songbird protection, as there are currently few provisions for these species here in the Comox Valley, other than the legislation I just mentioned. So we can go to the next slide. The reason I am bringing this to your attention today is that this issue of non-compliance with the BC Wildlife Act became so apparent to me during one of my morning walks adjacent to a property that was recently acquired by the town of Comox from the Comox Valley Regional District. Typically on my morning walks with binoculars in hand, I enjoy watching and listening for many songbirds that nest in this area. Unfortunately, on this mid-June day, I was overwhelmed to see several acres of land stripped and grubbed of all vegetation during the height of the songbird breeding season. Many of the birds that nest in these shrubby areas that were previously logged but left to green up nest on the ground, in stumps, and in shrubby vegetation. These are birds that you are likely familiar with. They include juncos, towhees, sparrows, hummingbirds, wrens, and warblers, just to name a few. That day, based on my years of birding experience, I would modestly estimate that half a dozen or more active nests were destroyed during the clearing of that land, each of which would have been a direct violation of the BC Wildlife Act and the Migratory Bird Convention Act. If evidence would have been collected, the responsible party could have been fined thousands of dollars under the regulation. So what I have up on the screen there is showing the location of where the clearing had occurred. In the upper picture, I believe that's from the Comox Valley Regional District website. It was a little bit difficult to figure out who actually owned the property because it was very recent that it was acquired by the town of Comox. So where you see the orange there, the orange kind of little thin corridor is where they put in a road. And then above that, it hasn't been so much cleared as it's impacted, but that's going to be the next area to look at. And then just for future reference, as we go through my presentation, the two green blobs just below that, and then there's kind of like a corridor, that's right now a trail that a lot of people use. It isn't posted as private, so people use that as a trail to get to Quality Foods from Hector Road. Anyways, those two blobs may indicate an area of a red-listed community type, which is possibly a trembling aspen swamp, which is a red-listed community type by the Conservation Data Center. So just something to consider, and I believe that is in the town of Comox. I've also, if you go to the next slide, I've included a couple photos of just some of the things I see when I'm out there in the field, because as I've told you, I am a birder, and one of the jobs I do is do nest sweeps. And so in this situation, there's 4 little juncos that were found in a right-of-way. So it has been cleared, it has been clear cut and allowed to green up. And those are 4 little juncos in dense vegetation underneath some coarse woody debris. And if you go to the next slide, that shows where the nest was located. So you can see they'll nest in pretty much anything as it's greened up. If you go to the next slide, that's a stump. And in that stump, which is also in a clear cut that's been allowed to green up, there's a Pacific wren nesting in that, and it had nestlings. So what they did in that situation is they buffered it, and within 2 weeks, the birds had fledged. And so then they were allowed to continue with construction. So these are both construction zones that where we were able to protect some nestlings that were occurring there. So in the next slide, so the BC Wildlife Act clearly states in section 34 that a person commits an offense if a person, except as provided by the regulation, possesses, takes, injures, molests, or destroys the nest of a bird when the nest is occupied by a bird or an egg. So that is the key component. It has to be occupied. A nest can be destroyed other than, we know that the nests of eagles and of great blue herons and of peregrines and other certain birds are protected, but for most songbirds, it's only when the nest is occupied by a nestling and an egg. So 2 recent successful prosecutions related to nests occurred in 2020. One for a bald eagle nest that was cut down, and one for a northern flicker nest that was cut down in Vancouver. Apparently, these contraventions resulted in fines of up to $10,000. And this was confirmed by Jenna Craig of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resource Operations and Rural blah, blah, blah. Plan Road. So large industries such as BC Hydro and LNG, municipalities and developers have avoided potential violations by retaining environmental consultants to conduct either primary site surveys or more specifically bird nest surveys during the breeding season prior to land clearing activities. Primarily, site surveys provide an inventory of the environmentally valuable resources on a property, such as nesting habitat, wildlife habitat, wetlands, streams, and red and blue listed plant communities. In comparison, bird nest surveys are more specific and are intended to prevent occupied nests with eggs or nestlings from being destroyed and resulting in non-compliance. So the best way to avoid non-compliance with the BC Wildlife Act and Migratory Bird Convention Act is to avoid land clearing activities during the breeding season from approximately January 1st to August 31st to include many birds such as songbirds, eagles, and herons. But let me just add to that. I know that it's a very big time frame, but I've also included eagles and herons in this. If you're specifically looking at songbirds, you can usually narrow down that time frame, that breeding window. However, if land clearing cannot be avoided at this time, it is recommended that bird nest assessments be completed prior to land clearing. For songbirds, this equates to nest sweeps being completed in potential nesting habitat immediately prior to clearing. The challenge is how to establish a system to protect nesting birds from land clearing when clearing land can occur without a permit. And from what I understand, what the regional district said yesterday, actually a permit is required for land clearing. So I would need to confirm that with the town of Comox on how that works in order to be able to provide suggestions. However, a seasonal bylaw, possibly similar to that created for eagles and herons, may also work on undeveloped or densely vegetated lands if they are at all monitored. Another option may be to request preliminary site assessments prior to rezoning applications or modifications to the official community plan, especially on larger undeveloped properties. Site assessments are more likely to help develop better contingency plans to protect environmentally valuable resources. For example, as I was describing, the property near my house I spoke of earlier also contains what appears to be a red listed community type described as an aspen crabapple swamp as described by the Conservation Data Center. In conclusion, the purpose of my talk today was to bring this issue to your attention, and I'm available to answer any additional questions you might have to provide further assistance. Also, one part I did miss is that in the slide right after this, one of the things that Burnaby did was they actually developed a nest a bird nesting bulletin, which they provided to developers and to other people who were going to do land clearing, as well as homeowners, to say that it was actually illegal to destroy a bird's nest. And the other part that I do want to mention is I'm not targeting here residential homeowners or people that are walking through parks. Like I was saying yesterday at the Comox Valley Regional District, that is a drop in the bucket. When somebody walks by a nest and you flush a bird, that bird is returning to its nest as soon as you have moved on, because birds are very focused when they have young to get back to their young. When they're going to flush and never come back is when their nest is destroyed, of course. So this isn't to target small homeowners that are doing some trimming of their hedges, because as you come to a nest, most people don't want to impact birds, or they move on. They see one, they go, oh, that's interesting. They might clip a bit more and move on, the bird comes back. So anyways, that's my presentation for you today. And if you have any questions for me or any recommendations, then I'm here.
Thanks, Julia. Just tell council that that property that we're talking about was part of a boundary extension, so we didn't actually buy it or anything. The town doesn't own it, it's privately owned, and it recently came into the town, so.
Can't hear you, Acting Mayor Grant. We can't hear you.
Sorry, I was just explaining that the piece of land that we're talking about was a boundary extension piece, and it recently came into the town, and it's all privately owned. So the town doesn't own any of that property. It's and it came in as a recent boundary extension, so that's how we got it. Just so you're aware.
One thing I'm just passing out right now is the signage that's on this property. And one interesting note, when I saw it today, I noticed that there's a DPA, which is number 11, which is a wildlife corridor. So I'm not too sure what that means. I wish I would have had time to look at what that DPA sort of describes. But from what I saw, that is the picture in the bottom is the road that was put through. It's a major road with overburden to the sides. And so I'm not too sure what they mean by wildlife corridor, because if they're trying to protect a wildlife corridor, that's maybe not it.
So we can get Marvin to explain that if
Yeah.
you like. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see. Let's go over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2018?
The thing is, these things take like 5-6 years, so you apply and then, you know, we like, I didn't know it would come in yet. I thought it was still.
So a couple years ago, just recently.
Yeah.
It still shows the maps.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you have an older map, it'll probably still show CVRD, but we've got more current maps that show it in town. All right, Marvin, go ahead.
Subject property in question, both owned by one developer. So there's the current site that's later on the agenda for development. This has town zoning with OCP. It's right in here. This parcel and this parcel with Broadman still retains the CBRD regional district zoning and OCP regulations. The regional district, like the town, to my understanding, has prohibitions on in terms of protection of eagle nests. And in our case, we have parents. I don't know if the regional district does. What has happened? Yes, there's been some brush clearing in this area. There's a future road going in through here. There's been some exploratory work, and also there was a problem with parties up in this area of this property that's actually in the town and town zoning. And the same developer at the request of the neighbors went in and cleared off the garbage and put up some barricades. Those are the actions to date. We do have an active application file on that. We do have an environmental assessment that was received on that. The focus of the town's regulations and in consultation with Jenny, we talked with Jenny a lot like that. Our focus has been on the eagle nest protection in that area. And We do tree protection at time of development, and we do eagle nest protection and heron protection. Right now, we're noticing there's difficulty in the development industry adjusting to additional regulations. And we're expending quite a bit of resources on our tree protection, and also we're having difficulty keeping up with the eagle and heron's nests that we currently protect. Because simply they nest. In consultation with David Craig, she noted that in terms of the breeding season for nesting birds other than eagles and the other high-level priority species identified in the Act, it's very difficult to locate such that regulatory biologists no longer require nest searches, bird sweeps prior to land clearing, the Administrative Migratory Birds Convention Act or the Wildlife Act. Also, even though forestry does not have an exemption, they are not required to comply with it, just simply on practicality. And lastly, in terms of land clearing, again, in terms of practicality, they did not enforce it for those level of birds. So again, not the eagle's nest, the heron's nests. And they recommend that land clearing be done between March 1st and August 31st. We have talked to the developer, there will be no additional land clearing in September. In terms of this regulation, it's problematic in its current wording and its current enforcement. Really the focus, if there's supposed to be action on that, I would recommend that in terms of for a much more manageable, something that actually can be enforced on.
Okay. Nicole, go ahead.
Wildlife, sorry, the wildlife.
Yeah, so the,
Habitat, wildlife, deer.
okay, and go ahead, Nicole.
Now that that property is within the town of Comox, which I thought that was senior needs, so that's great to know. Would they have required a permit for land clearing on that, or would they not? For the actual?
No,
They
under
recommend
the CERD bylaws. Is there under the CERD bylaws?
So because it's
No,
under there,
they would not.
would we have required it if they?
We would have required it, again, there's been a recent eagle nest in Carney on the east side. So we would have instituted a buffer for that eagle nest, but not for land clearing, general land clearing.
Not a permit. They wouldn't.
Unless it's in an environment, so environmentally sensitive areas, so one of the other things that we look at on great projects is environmentally sensitive ecosystems panels for this area. So anything that's in there is typically within a development permit area. So that stops any kind of land clearing. Likewise, if you're in a hazardous area, if you have a prohibition.
So I can't see Alex or Pat, so I don't know if you have any questions or not.
We're trying to hear every third word. I think as our agenda increases later on in the evening when we talk about having electronic, I think we really need to talk about our microphones because we can't hear what, like when Councillor Minions leans over to talk to Marvin, we can't hear anything. So I don't have any questions. I caught most of what Marvin said, but we really need to improve our microphones.
Okay, and Alex, have you got anything?
I'm okay for now, thanks.
Okay, so, all right, Julie, well, thank you very much for your presentation, and we will move back to, have we got Alana on the phone now, or on the Zoom? Okay, so we can move back to Alana Mullally from the Comox Valley Regional District with Comox Housing Needs Assessments.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Grant. I'm sorry about that earlier technical difficulty earlier. I'm joining you this evening to talk about the wrap-up of our Regional Housing Needs Assessment, and specifically to talk about the findings with the Town of Comox's report. So as you know, we undertook this work under the umbrella of the Regional Growth Strategy using grant funding provided through UBCM. And this project was not only about the completion of all of these reports and us obtaining all of this really rich data, it was also about us working together as partners and with some key community partners, so the Coalition to End Homelessness and the Community Health Network. And through that partnership, we were able to capture a number of community voices that we normally wouldn't have access to as local government. And so this has resulted in a really rich body of data in an aggregate and then individually for each community. Another important part of the project was capacity training. As you might know, provincial legislation requires us to have a look at our housing needs every 5 years and update our assessments. And so this project included some delving into the raw data with our consultants and understanding and learning about the methodology and interpretation. And this means that for the project team, I think we will be very well positioned to update this work every 5 years. So these reports show us what is happening in respect to our population, our economy, and our housing, and it shows who it is happening to. As you know from the presentation of the draft, this report does not get into the how we fix gaps, but rather it is intended to start conversations in each of the communities and as a region as a whole about where we go from here. And one of the key projects that will use these findings will be in our upcoming poverty reduction strategy. Oh dear, so I'm at home. One thing that's really important is to know that our housing market is absolutely integrated. So when we look at overall demand within the region, we know that residents will move back and forth within the region for affordability, alternative housing, and access to services. And as I said, this afternoon, I'm going to speak specifically to Comox. So our region is growing steadily, not rapidly. Our population across the region is expected to grow by about 4,000 people between 2016 and 2025. And that growth is primarily occurring in our municipal areas, which is precisely the intent of the regional growth strategy. So in Comox, that plays out to a projected 2025 population of 15,980 residents. And that's about 1,000 more residents than presently live in Comox. Our population is aging, and the highest rate of growth in Comox is within the 65-year plus age cohort. Similarly, as you might expect, the average household size is shrinking slightly over 2006, and presently that household size is at 2.1, and that we aren't expecting to see a significant change to that in 2025. The oldest household maintainers in the region, and those are the folks who are earning the income that's responsible for paying a household's expenses, reside in Comox. So, and this is going to be increasing to 2025. So by 2025, Comox can expect to have the same number of working aged folks as compared to non-working aged folks. And that's a little bit different elsewhere in the region. As I said, the over 65 cohort is growing in Comox, and right now that group sits at about 32% of Comox's population, and that's expected to grow to about 35% of the population in 2025. In respect to household income, I'm going to talk about median income, or the midpoint, versus the average. And that's in order to account for the significant outliers at either end of the income spectrum. And that's particularly important in Comox. As you might know, your income, household income average sits well above your median income. And that's attributed to a number of significant outliers in the high income brackets. So for example, almost 3.5% of your residents are earning more than $200,000. And so that could significantly skew. So your median household income is $69,254. That's greater than the rest of the region and a little bit lower than the provincial median. So the important part here, I think, is to break this down into the distinction between renter households and owner households. So for the median for rental households is about $46,762. And when we're speaking about owner households, that increases by almost $30,000 to $76,595. So you have a significant disparity between owners and renters. And this is not unique to Comox. We see this right across the four communities. What is important to note is that 22%, almost 23% of Comox's residents are living in renter households. And about 13.8% of those renter households are receiving subsidy, which is actually the highest subsidy rate across the region. Another important number in respect to household income is that 10% of Comox households fall below the after-tax low-income measure. The low-income measure is a set of thresholds that show the households whose overall income is below 50% of your median. So really what this tells us is that you have about 10% of households living with income below $35,000 per year. And the younger cohorts in Comox have the greatest challenges in meeting their housing needs. 10% of all households in Comox are in what's called core housing needs. So remember, those are the households needing to pay more than 30% of their income on shelter. And that's out of necessity, not choice. And affordability is certainly the greatest challenge. To put these numbers in a bit of context for you, what that means is that a household in Comox earning the median income cannot reasonably afford to purchase a single detached dwelling or a patio home. And lone parents, unfortunately, cannot reasonably expect to purchase any type of unit in Comox. We'll flesh this out a little bit more in respect to housing stock. So it isn't a surprise to you that the majority of Comox's housing stock is in single detached dwellings, and these are intended as owner occupancy. 79% of the units that were built in Comox between 2006 and 16 were intended for owner occupancies, and in 2016, 70% of your supply was in units with 3 or more bedrooms. Back in 2006, Comox had 45 bachelor units or studio units, and by 2016, all of these units were gone, either to demolition or perhaps additions made to those units. So historically, Comox has overwhelmingly focused its development on owner-occupied 3-bedroom single detached, and that's why you have the stock that you do. The rental market in Comox is very tight, as it is right across the region and across Canada, in fact. Comox has about a 1.5% vacancy rate, and that's within the primary rental market. So those are purpose-built units. And remember, vacancy rate is a measure of the number of available, or the percentage of available units at any given point. And a healthy rate would put you between 3 and 5%. As I say, this is a phenomena that is true right across our region. So in 2019, Comox had 390 primary rental units. When I say primary, those are those purpose-built rental units. This 390 doesn't account for 86 units that Comox is bringing on stream in late 2019 and early 2020. So in 2019, something was happening in Comox. You saw an increased interest by developers in constructing rental, which defies that historic trend in Comox, pardon me. Looking, however, at your 2020 construction starts, that doesn't seem to be a trend that's going to continue into 2020, however. The secondary rental market, so those would be folks who have put their single detached, largely as the case in Comox, on the market for rental. And that kind of stock accounts for 31% of your total rental market. And the majority of that stock, not surprisingly, is in 3-bedroom units. So ultimately, it's important to protect that existing stock and certainly to create opportunities for development of more primary rental. I make the distinction because secondary rental can very easily, as you know, flow back and forth between owner occupancy and rental occupancy, whereas primary rental is a very, say, a true picture of your actual rental stock. In respect to housing sale prices, Comox saw a significant tightening of the market between 2017 and 2019. What I mean there is that it got harder and harder to purchase a single detached in Comox in those years. The sales of all dwelling types within that period moved very briskly. And you saw a median sale price of $495,115 in Comox, so the median across all housing types. And unfortunately, that is meaning that affordability rates are worsening as more households are needing to pay above their means for shelter. And that's true across the region. That's not specific to Comox. Some of the key takeaways that I'd like to leave with you this afternoon. The most significant type of core housing need in Comox is affordability versus the adequacy of housing or its condition. And this is true, again, across the region. Renters are much more likely to be in core housing need than owner households. And certainly renter households have far fewer alternatives than owner households. So what we see in Comox, because of the fluidity or the integration of our regional market, is that many family types who are renting will not be staying or can't access Comox. Preliminary findings of the 2020 point in time homelessness count show an increase in visible homelessness right across our region. And our qualitative data work in this project shows an increase in hidden homelessness. And this came up a lot in the Comox qualitative portion. People that are doubling up, living with friends, sleeping in cars and RVs, etc. A key finding in the study, through both looking at where people are commuting for work and also through our qualitative data, was that access to a reliable alternative modes of transportation is key to overall household affordability rates within our region. And we all need, all jurisdictions, we need housing options that meet the needs of those folks who are on fixed income. And we need to be prioritizing universal design principles. So thinking about designing for all ages and abilities.
So Lana, we're past our 10-minute time allotment, so.
Let's leave it there then. Yeah, I'm happy to field any questions.
Okay, any questions from council? I see
I have a
Pat
question.
waving. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah. Thanks, Lana, for your presentation. So what happens next? There's been a regional housing assessment. Is there now a regional housing solution coming?
Well, I'm going to be cautious about talking about solutions yet, because I think this work it starts that conversation about what we want to do next. But in the short term, so on this project, our final step is to have a community housing forum. We're going to be doing that via Zoom, and that'll be to present the findings of these reports. That's scheduled for August 12th. You'll all be receiving an invitation. In the longer term, in terms of using this data moving forward, our poverty reduction strategy is the next big project on our horizon, where we will use this data. The goal there is to identify the specific actions that we can take in our community, those game-changing actions that will result in real improved affordability. So we imagine that we'll be looking at areas of transportation, childcare, and certainly housing to make those differences, to take actions as local government to make differences in people's overall affordability. And then over the longer term, the town and the other jurisdictions will use this data as you're considering development applications that cross your table. When you're working with development proponents who may be keen to assist the town in meeting the town where it is and filling some of these gaps, that's another way that you'll be using this data.
So with the town of Comox tonight on our agenda later on, we've got affordability for seniors. We've got a new development application for 42 units. We've approved 240 units, and we've got a new daycare coming. So we're on the right track, I think, but we have a lot of work to do.
Right. I think one of the important things out of the study is and Comox in particular, and I would say the rural areas as well, because our stock is the majority is in single detached dwelling. We have a lot of folks in Comox, it's that 65 plus cohort who are living in potentially overhoused situations. I spoke a little bit about this at the board last night, and those are the residents who maybe don't need that 3-bedroom house anymore, but they don't necessarily have an option to move elsewhere if they want to stay in the community, either because of affordability or because the units aren't yet on stream. And if they were able to move out of those units, it would free up some of that stock for those younger families who are challenged to meet their needs. And often that is our older stock, which typically would come in at a more affordable price point than some of the brand new construction that we're seeing in single detached market right across the region.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else got? Seeing nobody. Thank you very much, Alana. Great report.
Perfect.
Second time I heard it, and it was just as good the second time. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Good night.
Good night. So next we have Hal Martin, and Hal has a bit of a two-phase approach here. You're going to talk about Rob Road first, and then the overall. Okay, so we're going to give him a little bit of leeway here because he's going to hit two different topics. So Hal, go ahead on development variance permit application 20-5 for 2260 Rob Avenue.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, 20-5. I'm pleased to be here, acting Mayor Grant, members of council. You may recall my appearance in this chamber a little over a year ago regarding the zoning and variance applications for this project. At that time, we were aware of the wired servicing requirements for new lots. However, we need to take a step back in considering that. 2 weeks prior to that particular appearance, I appeared on a similar matter for another project at 1974 Bolt Avenue. It was only on the day of that presentation that we came to understand from planning staff that the intent of the policy was to convert overhead wiring to underground for existing houses as well as new lots. Bit of a surprise. This had never crossed our minds as a consequence of an infill lot subdivision. You may recall that I questioned the matter at the time on the Bolt project, but planning staff indicated that they were following the application of the policy for prior applications. When presenting 2 weeks later for the Rob project, I mentioned the issue in passing again, but we had made a conscious decision not to rock the boat on the conversion issue, as we had been working for a year and a half to get to the point of a favorable staff support recommendation for the applications. Working through the subdivision process and preliminary costing, it has become apparent that due to the particulars of this site, the conversion of the existing house to underground would be close to 50% of the overall development costs to create the new lot. This extra cost is exacerbated by the need for road cuts and the need to replace shorter substandard poles in implementing the Condor crossing option. We recognize the broad goal of the policy is to ensure that new infill development does not negatively impact the existing neighborhood where most of the existing wired services are overhead. I would submit, however, that the cost benefit ratio for the removal of one set of overhead wired service wires on this street is in this location is severely out of balance. The intangible aesthetic gain is minimal compared to the significant cost of implementation. Pardon me. With reference to some of the examples that have been cited in the staff or noted in the staff report, Church Street Tap House is not really a comparable. This is a commercial development within the downtown core and on the fringes of areas that are already converted to underground service. 325 Stewart is probably a comparable, although I don't know all the details. 537 Anderton, in fact, both new duplexes on that parcel, or at least at that address, are serviced overhead with mid-span drops as new poles would have been required to provide underground dip services. Not mentioned, but relevant, I think, is 1879 Comox Avenue, 197 Ellis Avenue. If ever the current policy should have been applied, this was it. All overhead wiring is on the near side of the road. Current poles are in place to provide direct underground dip services. No road cuts or new poles or replacements needed. Instead, both lots remain overhead. Just with reference to the questions that were posed or have been posed by staff in the report. Question 3, although they're not numbered in the report, but the third question. There are 2 options for undergrounding in this particular instance, one on Rob and one on Condor. Both require road cuts. Rob is much more complicated due to the proximity of existing services, including very shallow storm sewer and disruption of other properties. Condor crossing appears simpler, save for the substandard pole replacement that Hydro requires in order to install a dip service. Fourth question. There are perhaps only 1 or 2 residential projects which were completed with existing house services put underground of these infill type projects. Another 2 have been delayed or abandoned due to the added costs. Fifth question. As I noted before, while the underground requirement was noted, while the underground requirement was noted at the zoning DVP stage, the application of the requirement to the existing house services and the relative cost impact was not fully understood at that time. We are grateful that the town has been willing to re-examine the issue for this project, as well as in broader infill development scenario. We ask for council support and approval of the staff recommendation to grant the requested variance. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions on that one.
Thanks, Sal, and you were 5 minutes, so that was good. You were really going. Anybody got any questions on this Hal's actually going to talk about the broader piece here too next. So if you have questions on this particular one, now's a good time. If not, okay,
Yeah.
Alex, go ahead.
I've got one. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Hal for bringing this forward. I appreciated his letter, and the staff report was very thorough. And I think the intent of the planning department and of council was to make it easier to have infill housing. And I think it's nice to be aware that it was a big, I guess, sort of like a roadblock to, residential homeowners or whatever. So I'm glad we're going through the steps, and I'm glad that planning sort of put this report together to amend that requirement. So just wanted to thank everyone for being proactive on this and acknowledging that, maybe we didn't capture the right intent of what we were trying to achieve. So kudos.
So I don't see any other questions. If you want to go ahead with part 2.
Okay.
Away you go.
So this is in regard to planning report PR 20-7, which has been prepared by staff, and it addresses essentially the underground wired servicing issue on a broader basis for all ground-oriented infill development, residential development. I hope you've seen and read my email submission dated June 5th, 20, which summarizes a number of small lot infill projects which are either in process or contemplated at various stages. All of these projects which are contemplated to add small lot infill within established Comox neighborhoods in accordance with council's stated desire are affected by the current policy to provide all services underground for both new lots and existing houses. The two properties on Bolt Avenue, 1974 and I think it's 1961, are on hold as a result of the added costs of the underground servicing and conversion requirements. Others remain pending, partially due to the underground wired services issue. We are not certain that council fully understood the implication, and it was a previous council, I believe, or how many previous councils, I'm not sure, fully understood the implication regarding underground wired services when they approved the policy for ground-oriented infill and the guidelines for DPA number 2. It has become apparent that the requirement is causing an impact to the feasibility of some owners to pursue small lot infill projects. The impact varies greatly depending on whether the existing pole lines are on the near or far side of the street, whether poles are appropriately located, whether poles are appropriate for the utilities to install underground dip services, and so on. Even in the most favorable situations, the conversion of the existing house could run to $6,000 plus minus or even more, and could open up cans of worms in relation to electrical code changes, since most of the houses that we're talking about are mature, much like me. I'm grateful that town staff have heard the concerns expressed, and I have been willing to examine the issue and recommend some changes to council. The two recommendations put forward will be helpful. However, they do not address some of the nuances of the issue. With reference to the alternatives mentioned in the staff report, the preference would be to implement alternative 1. This will negate the whole undergrounding issue for infill lots. Admittedly, it will result in the addition of one more set of overhead service wires for each development. The question becomes, what is the relative negative aesthetic impact versus the encouragement of these infill projects? And there's a cost factor there, obviously, as well. This will also relieve the inequities that come from the particular circumstances of each project. Far side, near side, as far as the existing pole lines are concerned, pole issues, and so on. If alternative 1 seems like too great a leap for council at this time, then alternative 2 will provide some additional relief in certain circumstances. And I would just say that that will be in 2 of the current projects, that 2 of the current 8 that I've mentioned. Another option to consider may be fully exempting undergrounding when the existing pole line is on the opposite side of the street, therefore eliminating road cut costs and the need to patch streets, some of which have been repaved in recent years, such as Birch and Dogwood, where a couple of these projects are. I do wish to note that recommendations by staff are limited to the creation of 1 new lot. So it's an existing house plus 1 new lot. 2 of the pending projects can likely create 2 new lots in addition to the existing. And one of those possibly without even having to go through a zoning change, just by the relative size of the property. Would council consider amending the change to be up to 3 lots rather than limiting it to 2? Again, reference the examples in the question 2 that were there. I won't reiterate, but it's the same comments as what I had on the previous one in terms of the relativity of comparables on those projects. With reference to the questions staff have included in the report, the first question, my question would be does the addition of 1 new overhead service result in sufficient negative aesthetic impact to justify undergrounding the new lot, the cost of which can be quite significant, particularly if crossing the road? On question 4, individual variances are possible on a case-by-case basis. However, I think all parties would prefer to resolve issues once. Alternative number 1 will accomplish this. If only the current staff recommendation is adopted, then I suspect that further DVP applications may come forward for further relief, particularly on those projects where the far side poles and road cuts would otherwise result, and the costs associated with those. My numerous clients and I all thank staff and council for the opportunity to review this servicing issue in hopes that changes will improve the likelihood that council's goal of small lot infill development will be realized. Thank you, and again, open for questions.
Thanks, Hal. Any questions from council? Nicole?
Thanks, Hal. I'm gonna talk loudly. Just a quick question, your experience, since you have for those 8 on the go currently, are people building these mostly for family or rental purpose? And I know 8 is
Excuse me, Councillor Minions, you have to use a microphone. I'm sorry.
Is that not on?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. It's sensitive microphone. My question was, with his 8 projects currently, what the purpose of the infill was, whether it was going to be rental stock, vacation rental, family purpose. I'm just kind of curious that our goal of getting more rental stock is obviously present. So.
Yeah, I would say there's a variety. You know, certainly the one on Rob, not one of the 8, but the one on Rob is a family issue. Just let me think here for a second. I'm going to say probably the majority of those are for either passing on a service lot to a builder to build a small infill house, which would then be marketed. So you are getting some smaller infill housing, which might be the type of thing that some of the people in the larger, as Alana was talking about, the larger houses might be looking to downsize into. Maybe it's a 2-bedroom plus a den or something like that. So I think probably the vast majority of the ones I'm thinking about are going to be falling into that category.
Thank you.
Have we got any other questions? Oh, Pat, go ahead.
Thanks, Acting Mayor Grant. So I've read through the recommendations and the alternatives numerous times, and I find them very difficult actually to understand. And so I wonder if somebody with a microphone, maybe Marvin, could explain the difference between recommendation 1 and the alternative recommendation 1 or 2. Like I know about where an existing pole is required, but the alternative in 1 and recommendation 1 and 2, I don't see a difference there. So I must be missing something.
Okay, I'll let Jordan take this.
So the original recommendation is to allow the overhead servicing to remain on the existing home. So that's the recommendation. The first alternative is to not require undergrounding either on the existing home or the new home. And the second alternative is not to require undergrounding when a pole needs to be upgraded. So currently, if you need to install a new hydro pole, we're not making you do that in order to underground. But if you need to upgrade an existing hydro pole, then you are required to do so. The second alternative will not require you to move forward with underground if you have to pay for hydro to upgrade your pole, which hydro requires the homeowner to pay for the pole upgrade should that be needed. I can go through them once more if
So I guess, like we're making a recommendation tonight.
There's a recommendation in the bylaw amendment, so it won't be decided tonight. You're only going to get through 3 readings max. And so the original recommendation is to not make you do it to a house that already has it. The first alternative is to not make you do it to a house that has it or the new house. And the third one, the second alternative just has to do with whether or not you need to do it if you have to replace a hydro pole. So if you went with the first alternative, the second alternative doesn't matter anyway.
You still look perplexed, Beth.
I am, because I see the recommendation of 1 and like 1, 1, 2, 1, 2 and 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. Then I see the alternatives, and then in the staff bylaw amendment, I see the amendment as stated for 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, but there's no recommendation on the alternatives, right?
So that's correct. The recommendation in the staff reports are what staff has recommended. The alternatives are options for council to move forward. So what would happen if you wanted to move forward with the alternative is that council would pass that as an amendment after your second reading of the bylaw. And then the bylaw would be, you'd amend it on the second reading, and then you give the third reading as amended. And that's just, that is just a procedural thing because we're dealing with bylaws, which makes it extra confusing. If this was just a regular report, we wouldn't be bringing something like that to you. And this, what you're saying is, again, just because there's a bylaw and we provided the draft of the bylaw as per staff's recommendation.
So Pat, when we get there, we're a little bit ahead of ourselves, but when we get there, we can go down to number 3, which is second reading. At that point, if you want to bring one of the 2 amendments up, that's the time. And then we will adopt.
Yeah, I just, thanks.
We'll move it from there.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I just, you know, to speak to what Councillor Bissinger said before, I mean, the goal of reducing red tape is our goal to encourage infill housing. And so, you know, is staff making the best recommendation to reduce the red tape to encourage infill housing?
If the goal is, if your goal is to remove the cost and red tape on that, I would suggest that alternative recommendation number 1 is probably the one that you would support the most. And whether or not we've made the right one, I don't know. I guess we'll find out when council makes your decisions. But it sounds from what you're saying that alternative number 1 is what you would like to support when the bylaw comes up, and then council can discuss where you want to go from there.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe I'll just make a comment more generally, because I understand, you know, you've got a new CAO and the structure and layouts of the reports are a little bit different. So what I try and do is provide a recommendation, the reasoning for the recommendations, but I also try and lay out other paths that council may consider as viable or desirable. And so it adds, I think, some confusion initially as the reports come in, because there's a lot more options than maybe would have been there in the past. And that's to allow, like you said, if you want to go down a decision path to make these projects easier and reduce the red tape, then that alternative is presented so that council has the language, the understanding, and then everybody on council's coming to the meetings prepared, kind of prepared to discuss the options on a larger number of options, rather than just thinking that there's only one available.
Right, thank you. I may be getting ahead of myself, but you know, when I look at alternative 2, I think alternative 2 wraps everything up, because if you have an existing pole that requires replacement, that one takes that out of play, right? And we could just leave the wires on the pole.
So I would say, in terms of reducing the cost and reducing the red tape, you have
staff's recommendation as being probably the most prohibitive, so remaining with the most amount of red tape. Alternative number 1 reduces it the most, and then alternative number 2 is kind of in the middle. Because alternative number 2 only comes into play if a pole needs to be replaced, and that doesn't happen in every case. There's going to be a number of cases where the pole could remain, and if you moved alternative number 2 and a pole didn't need to be replaced, you would still have to underground on the new lot. And I think what you're looking for is not to require undergrounding on either the original lot or the new lot, which would be alternative number 1.
So I guess there could be an alternative number 3 where it takes the pole into consideration as well.
Yeah, that would be alternative number 2.
Okay, so I think maybe we'll move along because we're
Yeah.
going to get to this, so that'll give you some time to get your thoughts around it, and we won't be long till we'll be right back to this. So any other questions for Hal while he's here? I don't see any, so thanks very much.
Thank you.
You can, I guess you're allowed to stay. Yeah, we don't have to kick you over to the desk there or anything like that. Okay.
You want your own private viewing gallery?
Yeah, there's nobody there. Yeah, yeah, you could. Yeah, the bar isn't open over there either. So, thanks, Hal. So we'll move on to minutes of meetings, and we have the regular council minute meetings for July 17th for approval.
Move.
And any discussion? Everybody's happy. All those in favor? And that's carried. And then we'll move to management report, July 15th, 2020 for receipt.
Move receipt.
And any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, sorry, we caught Councilor Minnies. Yep. Oh, God. All right. Okay, we'll care. So all those in favor again? And that's carried, and we will move along to special reports. So Comox Valley Regional District minute meetings for May 26th, June 16th, and June 23rd, and Comox Valley Waste Management Board held on March 12th and March 25th for receipt.
Move.
And questions? Go ahead, Nicole.
I'm not sure if it was in my format, but there was quite a few like spelling mistakes and gaps and you.
Yeah.
Name. I don't know if upon receipt at Town of Comox, who made comments that to me that should be addressed at the regional district.
Yeah.
So we can move receipt, but there's a lot of garble. I thought it might have been my computer, but it's missing a lot of these, a lot of spaces.
Okay.
And wording
So-
statements inaudible, like I know these.
Yeah.
Just feedback, it's all
Yeah.
information on the next.
Yeah, I think we're good to receive, but we'll pass that along. Yep, no problem. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And we will now move on to bylaws applying report PR 20-7 requirement for underground overhead services in residential infill. And I think as Jordan played out, we'll start with number 1. So recommended, did you want to speak on it? Yep, no, go ahead.
So I think with the options laid out in front of council, the first question you want to answer, because you might not have to answer the question on polls at all, is to discuss whether or not you want to move forward with allowing undergrounding on, or requiring undergrounding on the new lots or not. Because if council decides we're not going to require undergrounding on the new home to be constructed, then alternative number 2 just becomes a moot point and you don't need to go there anyway.
Okay, so I see Alex has her hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess just a question on that. So basically, what I would like is not to require undergrounding on infill lots, but to require it for new subdivisions. So as long as this doesn't affect the new subdivisions. But like we discussed earlier, if alternative 1 is the least amount of tape for the town of Comox to encourage infill housing, whether it be coach houses or lot subdivisions, I support whatever alternative that is.
Okay, and Jordan, did you want to comment on that? Yeah, that's number 1. Okay, and then we had Nicole.
I'm liking the looks just as far as the cost lowering, whatever the word would be. for alternative one, but I'm just wondering if it was amended. Sorry, Councillor McKenna, I was saying I'm leaning personally towards alternative one that's presented that doesn't require any underground servicing. If it was amended to say split into 3 lots, just as an example, to take care of other lots that could be split, is there any negative implication? It doesn't mean that we're approving those lots to be split, or is that the way to cover those off as how
Jordan?
suggested?
Yeah, I think that would take care of it. It's not something that we had at a staff level kind of analyzed beforehand to see how many instances this would be coming into. But I think council probably has a fairly good idea of, it's not hard to picture what is it going to look like if you take 1 lot, add it into 3, and you have those overheads coming through. So it would really just be on council's comfort level on making that decision today.
Can I follow up to that? I know some people that may or may not be able to do that in different neighborhoods. Sometimes the lots could be potentially behind, and in that case, like, to me, undergrounding would be important in cases where you have like a small laneway or an easement back to the property. So in your staff recommendation, would it be that we do only look at those ones differently so that undergrounding may be required as far as getting to the back of a property or a property that's...
Yeah, when you're getting into the 3 lot splits, those can come up, and that's why I don't have a good understanding. I'm not sure if Marvin wants to make a comment off that, off the cuff either. We did have an email come in on that type of property, and my feedback to them was council may, make that change, but otherwise the variance requests are still open to them. So it's up to council's comfort level.
So it's a bit, we might be doing that before, it can be changed later on because we need to have all the information we have today.
Yeah. And the bylaw won't be finished today either. Although if we went through all 3 readings, got to the next meeting, and you wanted to make a more significant change like that, we'd need to repeal one of the readings, and it would be passed at the next council meeting. Which is just a procedural thing. It just takes 1 extra meeting is all.
And the ones right now are that, so it won't hold up anything.
It might. I know there is some 3 lot infills. Now, would that decision hold that up? I think probably the process that it's going through would take that amount of time anyway.
Great job. Did you want to sit here? I can, yeah. Okay, is any other questions?
Well,
oh, Maureen, go ahead.
Well, I think it makes most sense to stick with it, lots that are being divided into 2, and then people could go through the variance process for further subdivision of their property. They're going to be getting a lift on the subdivision anyway, so maybe the wiring wouldn't be such a big issue. So I think it makes most sense because aside from making things affordable and encouraging infill, we're also trying to get these wires underground. So that should also be considered. But I know it makes perfect sense where a house is already existing with overhead wiring, that it continue to be that way.
Okay, Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, who deems a pole necessary to be changed?
BC Hydro.
And so why isn't BC Hydro on the hook for that?
The unpolitical answer is they don't have to be, so they won't. They have the power to just say no, and that tends to be what they do. So what'll happen is, especially if these poles are getting to the end of their lifespan, I think that another organization can see it as a way to have some of their capital costs offset for them.
And my understanding is a new pole is about $8,000.
That's correct.
Yeah. So it's either going to be the town or the development application, candidate that's on the hook for that.
That's correct. There hasn't been any conversation about the town being on the hook for it, but it would be the developer. That's correct.
And what rebate does BC Hydro give us when we take a pole out and put wires underground?
I'm not aware of any town rebates that you're seeing.
Yeah, the prosecution rests.
Yeah. Yeah, Marvin, go ahead.
With Ferris, they do have a beautification program. The town extensively used. So yes, there is significant upfront capital costs to the town when we undergrounded Comox Avenue and when we extended the undergrounding past Berwick all the way to Stewart. There is a fund available. I believe they have 30% and of a limited amount. So no, they do not pay the shot. They don't pay it close to the shot. They do have a contribution in those cases. In the cases as discussed right now, replacing an existing pole because it's substandard. No, there is no program available from BC Hydro. It's strictly somebody else has to pay for it. And that's typically the
Thank you.
Nicole, go ahead.
I would move alternative 1 as written.
Okay, so the way we're going to have to do this, I think, according to Jordan, is we'll start with number 1, which is to add subsection, add to the subdivision bylaw. Can we do it first? Okay, fair enough. So,
I would move alternative 1 as written.
okay, and we got a seconder, and we've got a seconder, and any discussion on that? So seeing none, oh, Jordan, go ahead.
Just quick question, sorry. So do we have to vote this down in order to do alternative 1? Is that what's going on?
No, I'll add clarification. So alternative 1 has been moved. So this is the
Okay.
requirement to no longer require undergrounding of services either to the existing home or to the new home to be built. And that is what is on the floor right now. So again, the
Okay.
council is voting on removing the undergrounding requirement to the new home and existing home.
And just to confirm, Jordan, does that mean if we do this, we can do first, second, and third reading tonight?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that is carried. So now, Jordan, we have to do our first, second, and third readings. Or where are we? Okay, so we'll move on to number 2, which is to give this first reading. And someone want to make the motion?
Move.
Second.
And discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. And then we'll move on to number 3, which is to give the second reading.
Moved. Second.
And discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And move on to giving this third reading.
Moved.
All right. Anyone want a third? Okay. And so any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. So there you go, Hal. You don't have to stay, unless you want to. Oh, you got one more? You got more to go? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So we'll move on to new business now, and it's notice of motion, and this is the ministerial order for attendance at public meetings. And this is one that's kind of going around to all the communities. We have a bit of a unique situation here in that we have a very small council chambers, so we're actually setting up the Destair house so people can go and live watch. And as you can see, it's a raucous party in there. But so if someone wants to move number 1.
Move.
And any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And then we'll go on to ministerial order number M192, number 2.
Move.
And any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And then we'll move on, that's carried. And then we'll move on to number 3.
Move.
And discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. I think I saw Maya's hand even go up there. So good. And
The province would extend the liquor license to council viewing.
yeah, I think they should actually. Yeah.
They should.
Yeah. Well, you got to have something going. Could we have a band or something in there? Maybe we can get somebody coming. But so we will move on to planning report, prioritization of 1582 Balmoral Avenue development variance permit application DVP 20-6 development permit application DP 26. Someone wants to move that?
Move.
Anyone want to second that?
Second.
Second, okay, and then, okay, Jordan just wants to speak, so.
We've got a presentation presentation.
Okay, so we do have a presentation, so we'll wait for that to roll up.
Mine's the wrong one.
Got three, there's.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I'm ahead of myself.
Sorry, no presentation coming, so, so Nicole, go ahead.
Just a quick question. I know this one's relatively new and we've talked about it maybe twice. Are they, because there's such a time crunch on getting this started, I believe it was in an email previous, but are the, your 16 units that are here currently, are they being housed somewhere?
So I met with Ron Weber and is it Fred Tutt about 2 weeks ago, and they're most of the, or I'm not going to say majority, some of the people have already got alternatives to go. They have family or places they can go. The rest, they're looking at Port Augusta Motel to put them in while the construction's going on, and they've been in conversation with all the residences in there, all the residents in there. So everybody's good to go with it as far as they're concerned, because they'll end up in a better spot at the end of the day. Yeah. None from the residents that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
And then Councillor Bissinger.
Yeah, just have a question. I'm in favor of the recommendation. The only question I had, like, I know it says that the motions were adopted to target creation of affordable housing for seniors and the disabled, but there's nowhere that specifies that this project is indeed for seniors or disabled. Like, am I missing something? Like, is that going to be, like, is it true that it is for seniors, and can we ensure that just because there's such a need for senior housing as well?
Yeah, I think we're pretty safe on this, but I'll let Jordan just speak to that.
Yeah, this is a senior housing project going to BC Housing as that. That's where they're getting their funding from. So I don't think there's much risk that I don't think there's any risk that's a bait and switch going on.
Okay, thank you.
And just to make one other comment, one of the important things to note, I think, for council on this report coming up is just, again, the amount of applications and the prioritization that's coming from the planning department. So we see another one moving up the queue and asking for immediate attention in order to meet their timelines. We're going to have another one of those coming to council, and I'll be informing you of that in the next day or maybe even tonight. So these are continuing to come, and the strain on planning and the fact that we cannot deal with everything that's coming in at once is just something to continue to be of note. We are trying to prioritize to get the larger projects, the ones that are going to have affordable housing, meet seniors' needs and meet the community's needs. But that does mean that other projects need to be delayed because of the prioritization on these.
And so on this one, my understanding too is that none of the bigger projects are going to be delayed on this. Marvin, maybe you could just reiterate what we spoke about. Harold Long's in particular, he's been on hold for quite some time now. So
correct. The two large projects that the biggest delayed, one is already on your agenda, and the other one is Harold Long's. And we're not having resources to hold on that project. We separate staff resources to ensure that it continues.
fair enough. So Councillor Swift.
I guess we've talked about this before, and I know it's never been looked upon favorably, but for some of the smaller applications, is there any possibility of contracting them out?
Jordan, you wanna go there?
Not right now. I'm not aware. It's a conversation I can have with Marvin, and we can talk about that at a later time if that's all right.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just know, some people that are, if you're trying to get building your house and you can't get it up the queue, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and no, that definitely exists right now. I'm just not aware of what resources we can pull in on a contracting basis and what the cost would be. So I just want to have a little bit more of an understanding before I start to provide any information on that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I see Pat's. Oh, is he coming back or is he going away? He's coming back.
No, I'm just stretching.
Stretching. Okay, so have we got anything else on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And we will move now on to development variance permit application DVP 252260 Robb Avenue. And this is for approval. Someone want to move that?
Move.
Second, okay, and then discussion. Hal's sitting on the end of his chair here, just waiting in anticipation. So seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Now Hal's heading over to the party next door. So. Okay, so yeah. So then UBC Community Excellence Award application. If someone wants to move that recommendation.
Move.
All right, and then discussion. And Councillor McGowan was first, I think.
I just wanted to say that I saw the presentation at the water sustainability conference, and it was really great. It got a lot of people talking, and I think that this is a great way to encourage and recognize wonderful work.
Excellent. And then I saw a plethora of hands going up, so we'll go to Councillor Swift next.
Thanks. Well, I think it's an excellent thing to do, because I think there's been a lot of work go into it, and we're all very modest, and it would be nice to get some recognition periodically for some of the things that we do very well here. So I would hope that we would win this award. Yeah.
Don't want to come in second. And then Councillor Minions, I think you had your hand up as well. No, you pulled it down. Okay. Pat or Alex? I can't see Alex. So Pat, you're good. And Alex, did you have anything?
Changing diapers, I think.
Yeah, okay. All right. So seeing no other comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. And we will move on to rezoning application RZ 18-6 development permit application. And it's development variance permit application DVP 19-7 for 2310 Guthrie Road. So someone wants to move that.
Move.
And a seconder.
Second.
And then Marvin, is it you? Yes. Okay, Marvin's gonna give us a little spiel here.
Is Marvin using slides?
Yes, it'll be a PowerPoint.
Do we have that PowerPoint?
You should be able to see it.
No, we can't see it.
Marvin, can you email that to and
Yeah, it's probably okay. We haven't seen any presentations tonight, so we'll just listen intently.
You should come down to the stairs over there.
Well, I'll be glad for the one that we just passed, so where we can have a bigger spot to meet in.
All right, we're just, Nicole just stepped out for a second, so we'll give her a chance to get back.
Ah, perfect.
yeah, I'll remember that now.
Yeah, now you won't. Right?
Full size. Oh, this is a touch screen. Yeah.
All right, so if everybody ready to go? Can't see you on the screen, so I'll assume you are. And Marvin, go ahead.
Thank you. So both project at 2310 Guthrie Road, as mentioned by the mayor, it involves a rezoning application, development permit application, and development variance permit application. The presentation outline is we'll first go over a brief summary of the proposed development, then a location and land use context, followed by looking at the OCB sustainability implications in regards to transportation, pedestrian, and park network, affordable housing, on-site features, And then lastly, development permit area guidelines and zoning in regards to mitigation of building mass. Am I speaking loud enough for the microphone?
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. So, rezoning application on the subject property is bounded by Guthrie Road to the south and McDonald Road to the west. And it would see the development of 42 three-story townhouse units on 3 of the 4 buildings fronting Guthrie Road. Half of the ground floor, the portion facing Guthrie Road, would be commercial space, and that would comprise about 530 square meters of commercial space. In terms of the location and land use context, the OCP land use designation of the subject property is mixed use commercial residential. It's within development permit area 4, again for mixed use commercial residential, and the current zoning is CD 13. Now, want to just bring your attention to that is 100% commercial. So it has no allowance for residential units. So you're seeing a large shift in this proposal. And it was actively marketed for a number of years at commercial, and it did not proceed. Density. So one of the key things in terms of neighborhood sustainability that, as council knows, comes before them is if you're going to do this development and there's some density involved in the development, what's going to be the impact in terms of vehicles on the surrounding neighborhood? In this case, there's significant capacity for this. It's located on Guthrie Road. Guthrie is an arterial. So arterials are designed for greater than 5,000 vehicle trips per day. In this case, we're currently at 12,000 vehicle trips. And that's going to increase in the future. Build out on under our OCP, that Guthrie Road will go 4 lanes. So that will tie into Lerwick Road, and you can see that Lerwick Road is already going 4 lanes on that side. The McDonald Road is a major collector, so it's handling local and through traffic to and from Guthrie Road and Back Road. Of course, Back Road forms that secondary connection between Courtenay and Comox. So again, it's designed between 3,000 and 8,000 vehicles per day, and currently we're in the lower range at 4,800. That will also increase as we go up into the Anderton corridor, up into this area, because it's going to loop through and then connect into Aston. So, and the fact that it has a light already at that intersection, of course, makes it quite useful in that regard. Alternative transportation. One of the key factors in terms of meeting our greenhouse reduction targets in the official community plan is in terms of transportation and building construction. In terms of transportation, again, it's very well suited because Guthrie Road is the frequent transit route in terms of bus service. So that's providing the higher level of bus service connecting downtown Comox to the hospital, North Island College, and downtown Courtenay. The bike lanes, existing bike lanes, exist on both Guthrie and McDonald Road. Very unique to this project and shown in the pre-application public consultation is the importance of the pedestrian system and in relation to the park network. So what this development does have is, part of the comments that we heard is people who currently cut across the property could have taken from Tracker Place as opposed to going all the way around to Aspen. So proposed, you have road dedication for a walkway connection along the, I would call it the southeast portion of the property. So that's right here. There's also, in regards to the standard road system, of course, you have sidewalks on Guthrie Road and McDonald connected over to Courtenay. You have a plaza, and that would be owned by the town, constructed by the developer and owned by the town, of approximately 330 square meters. So you've got some bike racks in here, you've got some seating areas that will be constructed, and then some shade trees, which again, for the aging population that you heard of earlier today is going to be critical in terms of people moving along, not only for transportation, i.e. using Guthrie Road because they want to get to get to Courtney, but also probably more important to the community is in regards to a very extensive greenway and park system that Comox and Courtney have collaborated with in terms of running down McDonald Road. So running down McDonald Road on the Comox side, we have the McDonald Greenway that connects into Lancaster Park and Og. And if we go on south of Guthrie and we look at Courtney side, you have Hawk Greenway doing the same thing. It's running up McDonald, and you're looking at the Lerwick Nature Park that is there. Cross Guthrie Road, you'll get to the plaza. So again, that's going to be an important resting area. And then you've got the greenway that goes up to Indians. And you've also got a naturalized, existing natural area on Inverclyde Park and Courtney. And current plans for draft plans show future playground and future greenway connections going up into Anderton. Affordable housing, so there's payment of $61,000 to the town's affordable housing reserve fund. On site, they're proposing step 3 as opposed to the required step 2, so they're going one step higher. And you have provision of electrical conduits, the garages of all townhouse units, so that if residents do have an electrical vehicle, it's relatively easy to run the wires for electrical vehicle charging. There's 5 adaptable housing units. And the units that are facing the arterial and collector roads will meet sound attenuation standards set by CMHC for interior areas. In regards to building mass, in terms of this one, you got 42 units. Yes, they're 3 stories. These are significant residential units. But it's really broken up because it's broken up into 9 relatively small buildings. And you've got 3 6 townhouse units and 6 with 4 units. You have terracing of the 2nd and 3rd stories relative to the ground floor. You'll see this. This is a residential building on Guthrie. And this is
Marvin, could you speak a bit louder? I think we lost you there on the.
Okay. The terracing of the ground floor on the commercial building, which is to the left on the slide, you'll see that there's a significant projection of the ground floor commercial to give it that street presence. And then you have the terracing of the 2nd and 3rd floors. The residential, very unique to the design, is really this first floor is not necessarily set back from the 2nd and 3rd stories, but the use of the focal points and the use of a balcony on the 2nd story brings it and gives it that idea that there's actually a terracing of the unit. You'll also see in terms of the end of the design, you'll see the cutouts in the corner, right? Again, that's breaking up the building mass as viewed from the street. In terms of also mitigating by having some pedestrian interest, strong pedestrian interest, and we have the commercial, with a street front commercial on that. And we also have residential patios and pedestrian entrances. They're all facing onto the street as opposed to being pulled into the back or in interior of the development. And then you have, they may be somewhat polarizing, but you do have very strong architectural features. Reflecting more of the current architectural trends and how they're trying to break up these buildings while meeting step code 3. So, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councillor McGowan.
I just got one about parking. What's the parking going to be like for the commercial?
Parking for the commercial is totally internal. So that's on the, okay, parking is, and I'm just going to step away from the mic for a second, is to this internal island. So it's surrounding. So essentially people are allowed to come in. There's pedestrian focus because the commercial units front onto Guthrie if you want to come in to park. Then you have the commercial, those common commercial parking areas that are in the islands, and all the townhouses have 2 parking spaces, one within the garage and one within the driveway.
Can't see my hand, Ken, I guess, eh?
Okay, well, we'll let Nicole go first and then you're next. Oh, Pat,
Thank you.
go ahead. I can't see at all, so.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Is it Councillor Minions first?
No, go ahead, Pat.
Oh, okay, great. So, You know, it's a really super interesting, it's very highly dense subdivision. It's interesting. I'm just curious about how the developer feels their excitement around the commercial units. Did they propose more housing and we said we'd like to see commercial?
Correct.
And so, like, how much housing would have been lost due to our insistence on commercial on the lower floors?
0, because those units, so what's happening is essentially you have 3 stories and those ones with the commercial units. So you still have a full townhouse, 2.5 stories. So you have a garage and then you have a walk-up. And the commercial is limited to the south half of the ground floor. So number of units lost is 0. Number of vehicle parking spaces is 0. The floor area of the units is smaller.
So some creative design work. Thank you.
I have some questions too. I don't know if I can speak now or after Councillor
Well,
Minions.
I think Nicole was next, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah, just a quick question on Guthrie Road, which is currently obviously 2 lanes, expanding to 4. Would that change the bike lane capacity at all when that does go to 4 lanes?
Not to my knowledge. It's part of our transportation plan and in the OCP. What you're probably going to lose is the nice median in the center.
Okay, I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah. So that median back in the day was designed so that could be a 4, eventually a 4-lane road all the way down. So yeah.
And then my second question was, it looked like the public consultation happened in 2017. I don't know if that's correct.
Public consultation on this one should have been around 2018. It's got a 2018 number, so probably if it was submitted in early 2018, so yeah, it could have been late 2017, early 2018.
Yeah.
No, what happened on this project is we did the community consultation. We then did extensive. The applicant did an extensive design work. The applicant had some other projects, so he wasn't really pushing it that fast. Once he started wanting to push it, what happens when you get onto sites like this is BC Hydro. BC Hydro then gets involved, and then you get the clearance ratios. And as you can see, the units, not a lot of just vacant yard space to put the transformers. That resulted in, I'm guessing now, 3 to 4 month delay. And by the time that hit, then all of a sudden we were focused on 695 Aston. So again, it was the timing.
So would there be public consultation on this modeling and presentation?
There will be a public hearing. Given the comments that we received, we're going from commercial, like arterial strip commercial, to residential. And that's reflected in the comments received. Very limited, and I don't anticipate that will change when we go to a public hearing.
Yeah, this was originally a strip mall, I guess is for lack of a better term. And we did get quite a bit of pushback from the neighbors at that time, as I recall, and then it didn't go ahead. So for any of the neighbors that have been there for a while, this is a bit of a nice change for them. So if you can view it that way. And then Councillor Bissinger.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty excited seeing this development because when I look at it, just based on the drawing and the elevations, I kind of think of like Tin Town and the high density and how cool it could be. And I guess a few things that I'd like to ensure or suggest. What I'm guessing is that they're 3-story townhomes, so you're not going to have a lot of seniors moving into those. I think it'll be more like young family orientated. So I don't know, like there's not much room for gardening or anything of food security related. I don't know if we can integrate some fruit trees within the neighborhood. I think it'd be cool for the community. Also the commercial space, is it like condos, like people that own the townhouse also own the commercial space, or is it going to be managed by the builder developer, or what's the deal on that? I think it'd be really cool if it was sort of like those, like Tin Town style, like you own the bottom, you can open your business and it's a lot more affordable to run a commercial business versus renting from someone else. So I'm not sure, Marvin, if you can comment on that. And then the third question was the units, there's 5 that are adaptable. I can't remember seeing any elevators built into them. What's the plan for those?
So under our adaptable housing standards, they have to have a void. So that's typically closets, so that it's pretty easy to, if you wish to install an elevator in the future,
And then the main floor living, you have to have the bedroom and bathroom, kitchen, having accessibility in between. So really, would it allow a retrofit? Yes. I mean, if somebody already has disabilities, so it allows aging in place, a good level of aging in place. It is not for somebody, that housing form is much more families, and it is single parent households is the primary market to that, based on the townhouses that same developer built on Lancaster. And you had a let's see.
Yeah, well, I guess the second part was about the commercial space. Like, is it is the townhouse own the commercial space, or is it all managed by a builder developer? Like, is there opportunity for, you know, homeowners to have commercial space within their units? Like, if you buy a home and you're a hairdresser, then it comes with, like, you know, a space to have your hair salon. Or if you're a massage therapist, like, you buy your townhouse, you work at your house within that commercial space. That's basically like onto Guthrie. I think that would be, you know, genius, and there'd be like quite the market for it. And then I guess that my other question, so if you can answer that one, the other question was about more like fruit trees and food security, like more room for gardening. Like, I've noticed a lot of the plants are just like maples, which are, you know, they're aesthetically pleasing, but it's not you know, for a community that's going to have a lot of families, it'd be cool to have like plum trees, apple trees, pear trees, whatever, and just kind of incorporate that within that little, you know, like I see this and it's like a high density community. I think there'd be a lot of opportunity for that.
So we do require in our standards where you do have patios that they have exterior cover. So to allow patio gardenings, in terms of, I mean, from the town's point of view, if future residents wish to change out trees for fruit trees, I'm sure we'd be accommodating on that. And that would not require, we wouldn't make any permits required as long as they were of the same sort of substantial nature. In terms of the sale, my understanding, and I don't know if this is set, but my understanding is that the commercial units are going to be individual stratas. So if you did have a townhouse and you did wish to have a business, you have two options. One, we do allow townhouses to have home occupations. So your office type uses would fit into that. And then if you did wish to buy a commercial unit and not pay rent, you could buy that with your townhouse. But again, that's my understanding. If you wish for me to get a statement from the developer, let me know, and I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, it would be interesting just to see what the plan was for those, because I think it kind of changes the whole feel of a community. If it's, you know, the old, like Tin Town, right? You have like the homeowners live upstairs and they have their business downstairs, and I think that's kind of like a neat feeling because it keeps the business alive after 5 p.m.
Yep, so we'll follow up with the developer and we'll send all of council an update on email.
Perfect. Now we have Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I know in the permitted uses that you've excluded liquor stores and recreational cannabis retail stores. And I'm just wondering about the rationale behind that.
Rationale behind that was really focused to the fact that this is ground orientated. So it's ground oriented residential. Yes, it is townhouses. And so if you think about mixed use developments or anything else like that, and you have the commercial on the ground floor, you've got a pretty good separation in terms of entranceways between the two uses. Also in this case, what's happening is to get that street orientation, you are getting your commercial parking internal as opposed to in front of the commercial units. And so you would have that nighttime activity then going through the residential units, the heart of the residential units, and likely to cause some strata friction.
A ruckus.
Strata
I
friction.
knew there was going to be an explanation, but yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you.
Acting Mayor Grant, I just have one more question.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad for that bylaw exclusion for the liquor and cannabis, because I think this is a family-friendly development. Just a point of question to Marvin. I'm looking at the island units, and on the front of the island, is that a play area I see?
Patio. So you have drive area.
I can't see what you're pointing to, even if I had
on the
binoculars.
Oh yeah, on the bottom elevation. So the elevation that is facing the intersection of Guthrie McDonald, those are ground floor patios, entranceways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I see, and I see parking and stuff. I'm just wondering, like this development is geared towards families. I don't see anywhere for kids to play.
Correct. You do have a park. I mean, in terms of facilities, you do have a good access to an extensive greenway system.
Yeah, I'm just thinking 5-year-olds on bicycles, young families. You know, that would be a deterrent. I think there's very little backyard. If there was a centralized play place, that might encourage more families to purchase in here. Maybe they're going to purchase anyway, but I would just see, if I was a young family, I would want somewhere for my kids to play.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a heck of a nice street for street hockey. You know, there's not going to be a ton of traffic, but for, you know, and for bicycle riding and stuff. But I don't see any green. I don't see any grass. You know, I see a lot of sandwiched together homes, but I don't see a lot of play opportunity for children.
Correct. That's not proposed in this development.
There you go. So I see no further questions. So we can, Jordan, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Marvin, can you walk through the two things? One, walk through what the phase development is going to look like, because this isn't all going in at one time. And then two, just to get to Councilor McKenna's question, what's council's options at this junction to require changes in the design to meet some of those things that they've talked about, whether it would be adding fruit trees or requiring park space or any of those sorts of things?
Certainly. Okay, in terms of the phasing, so you're going to have on a development like this, and it's similar to what the developer did when they did the Lancaster development, there's a large number of phases. There's 8 phases. So the idea, and what that allows the developer to do is, if the market is soft, you're not throwing a lot of stock on the market. And then if the market is strong, you can do multiple phases. Phase 1 has a unit on Guthrie Road, one of the buildings on Guthrie Road, and all internal road systems are part of phase 1. So the road system gets built out. The idea in terms of fire access, turnarounds, that's all built out in phase 1. In terms of playground access, I mean, council has the ability to refuse the rezoning application and to address new priorities and ask that advise that they'd be much more favorable in terms of looking at something with those higher priorities. Given the time delay and just in general, I would always caution council. Developers set their purchase price and their development plans based on the town requirements of the day. We're very successful in getting things like additional, like step 3 compliance and all the other items because councils made that known in advance. Developers typically, they're not going to be happy about it, but they're able to build it in because it's not affecting once they start paying money for it. Midstream, that tends to be more negatively seen by the development community.
The park across the street has a park, correct? Like a playground, it's right across.
Correct. Lancaster Park does.
Yeah, I think if I could add a comment too, just following Councillor McKenna's comment about parks, like it seems like that little island kind of lends itself like naturally for like a little central grass area. I don't know if there'd even be opportunity to just move like those 3 parking spots to like the northeast corner of the lot, it just seems like there's like electrical room or whatever. That's probably a dead zone. So, you know, even if they could rearrange some of the parking, move the parking over and just have like, you know, like a nice grassed area, you could put a couple benches like within, like, you know, at the center of the actual development. I don't know if that's like an option at this point, but it would seem to make sense, you know, just to have that spot, because you could see that basically from every single house. Like if your kids were playing there, you could see it from almost every single townhouse within that neighborhood. Even just like that small little chunk on the right-hand side of the island.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'd want my 5-year-old crossing an arterial 4-lane road.
Marvin, have you got some comments or?
I mean, that is direction that you could provide the developer. If you wish to. When you have a townhouse development immediately to the east that has more open space, we have development application coming before you. Immediately to the north has single family, some large lot single family, and some front to back duplexes that are being proposed. So there is other development within the neighborhood that would feed that would meet that more family profile. But again, that is a decision of council in terms of what council's priorities are.
Yeah, I always find it difficult at this point to start making changes to the planning. I mean, part of this becomes the developer's issue. If he builds this and it doesn't have a playground and nobody buys them, then that's his loss. I don't see that happening here. I also know that as we go up McDonald Road, there's, as you said, future development, and I'm not sure if Harold's got any park system or anything built into that, but you know, there'll be some further development right behind this as well. So
we are, in terms of the initial conversation with Harold's, that the next property to the north, that property extends all the way to the Hectare Road dedication. And that road, and I'm talking about the portion of the Hectare Road dedication between Aspen and Indians Way. Part of that, in terms of preliminary discussions with the applicant, is that would not be opened to the public. It would remain a greenway. So you're looking at a 20-meter greenway, and there would be some multifamily actually adjacent to it, and a smaller playground built into that greenway, closer to Aspen.
Is it the same applicant, Marvin, on the south side of this property?
No, so this is to the north. So this is, okay, I'm just gonna, I don't know if you can see me. I'm just gonna, oh no. On the slide that's currently up, or.
Yeah, I see your mouse. I see your mouse.
Good. So that property is right where that mouse is, and then it extends, wraps around, it goes right where the mouse is and then goes north. Because if you move your mouse a little bit to the right, keep going.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I was oriented in the wrong direction. So I'm with you now. That's a different applicant though? That
is a different applicant, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have, because you have along the, how to say this, on the, if you take the drawing, the site plan as the top being north, if you're on the northeast corner, that's Tracker Place. So that's single family. So that's an existing single family neighborhood in that area.
Yeah, but in behind where your cursor is now, where your mouse is now, in behind there is all potential development, right?
That's Tracker Place right there.
But to the right of your mouse, like, is all empty land, and it's being developed, and it goes down towards Aspen where it's going to connect, right? We were just through that trail system on our bikes the other day, and it's there's huge tracts of land in there.
Yeah, but I'm going to change to the park slide, Greenway Park slide. So where it's got the nice red dot, says subject property.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, like guys.
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if you're looking at the Greenway slide and you see the, holy smokes, where'd the mouse go? Oh, that one. Oh, that was it. Okay, so in this area, so here's a future playground. This is Hector Road. That will be closed off. The development that we're looking at, it goes like this. So really, it touches only a portion of the lot touches that vacant area that's currently beside McDonald Road, that's currently vacant that would be developed. That's all of this area. This is Tracker Place. So all of this entire block, that's backing onto the properties. So it's a bit of a weird, I don't know, a trapezoidal shape or whatever else you want to call it. But essentially in this slide, you see the red area where it's green all along Guthrie Road. That's the subject property. And then the area that's to develop will be the green part, extending all the way to the future playground.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the reason the Lancaster Park and Bog is so big is because of the size of the Lancaster subdivision.
It was the remnants of an environmentally sensitive area in terms of there used to be a large bog and it extended across Guthrie Road to the north. Most of it was blown out when we put in Guthrie Road to connect to Lerwick.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an environmentally sensitive area that we then were able to maintain, build into the stormwater system. So it's actually part of the stormwater system and that maintains the bog area. And then we took the additional park dedication up with, which is Lancaster Park, the actual built park, as opposed to the natural area.
Okay, thanks. I have no more questions.
Hey, Stephanie, go ahead.
I believe you said this earlier, but
Can't hear you, Steph.
I believe you said earlier that there was an environmental assessment done of the area. Was that
Of the lands to the north, yes.
Yeah, but not this particular area? Or?
This area has been cleared, it's just broom.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Actually, this area also would have been part of the development of the bog on the south side. So that's where we would have focused our environmental impact assessment.
And I also have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. McGowan's done, but just following like the presentation we had on songbirds, is this area, like from what I recall driving and seeing it, it's basically down to like shrubs. It's like a prime bird habitat right now. Is it like, is this a confirmed area? Like, would there be any, biologists doing like a nest assessment or anything before the development happens?
On the subject property, no. On the property and lands to the north, we did get an environmental assessment by a biologist. It did not address nesting birds.
But this particular property has been cleared for 15 years?
Yes, I don't
guess
know
if
the
not longer.
propensity of nesting songbirds in terms of broom. It's substantially broom.
Okay, seeing nothing further, we can move on to number one, and that's the Comox zoning amendment to bylaw 1897 for first reading.
Move.
And any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried, and we'll move on to giving a second reading. Someone want to move that?
Second.
And any discussion? And all those in favor? Then we'll move on to the phase development agreement authorization bylaw for first reading.
Move.
Second.
And discussion? All those in favor? And for second reading?
Move.
Second.
And discussion? And all those in favor? And that's carried. And then number 5 is to book a public hearing.
Move.
Second.
And discussion? And all those in favor? And that's carried. So we'll move on to garbage collection frequency. Someone wants to move the recommendation, we can discuss it.
Move.
So move. Second.
Okay, and so it's on the table. Any questions or comments? All right, we'll start with Councillor, I almost called you Director, Councillor Smith. I forget which hat.
Has there been any discussion or necessity to purchase bins? I know when we talked about this some time ago, the cost of, I believe it was organic bins, was significant. So.
Not at this moment, and that's going to be part of the discussion as we move to the next contract. That would bring us in line with Courtney. We were talking about moving into the same collection contract that Courtney has, and there may be a move to the automatic collectors, and then at that point we would need bins. But for this change in service, there's been no conversation about requiring bins.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so initially, this has been sort of an ongoing issue for many years, and we're finally sort of bringing it to a head. But initially, what we were going to do was go to bi-weekly garbage and weekly recycling was always the way I saw this going. I'm having a bit of difficulty with the bi-weekly and the bi-weekly, just in that knowing what happens with big families, that's a lot of onus to put on. We have a pile of garbage in a week. If you make it 2 weeks, it becomes onerous. So I always thought we were going to go to the bi-weekly garbage and weekly recycling to reduce some of that, and probably a little easier transition in. I get that it probably doesn't save us a lot of money that way, but you know, to transition into this, and then we could maybe look at that change later after people have gotten a little used to it. But that was always my recollection of it. So I'm not sure where it changed to going bi-weekly and bi-weekly. Go ahead.
So I was going to say I had a similar, I brought that up before, just somewhere it kind of shifted, but in general, I like the idea of going bi-weekly garbage, but I think that there needs to be a little more financial information, and also just, I've been looking at about 10 different communities to see what they're doing, and it's amazing how many different, you know, Nanaimo Regional District, which has some of the best diversion, does do the way it's recommended here, which I thought was interesting. But I agree that if you all of a sudden take something away and don't come up with some kind of halfway solution. So it'd be interesting to see what different communities are doing, which ones have great success on their diversion and lowering what goes to waste management, but without financial numbers, it makes it very challenging to just say, let's do this item. So I don't know what type of staff report, if there's the resources to do that.
What
Other
financial
community
numbers are you
research.
talking about?
Well, so you know, looking at this, my instinct would be that bi-weekly garbage and weekly recycling collection, which is something we just offhandedly talked about for the last 2 years. But it's hard to say that without knowing what the cost of going to weekly recycling would be.
Yeah, I guess what you're asking is, would there be a cost?
It's in there.
Yeah, it's in the report.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to save our taxpayers to go bi-weekly, and it's going to be negligible if we go bi-weekly, weekly, is what I read.
Yeah.
Okay, I misunderstood that. So in general, just information about what other communities on the island are doing, but I missed that one, financial. That's great.
Okay. Have we got Councillor McGowan?
I just think that it's great. I mean, the more we can cut down and divert, the better. There's a small line about a full communications plan to all residents being developed and implemented prior to any change. And I think that's going to be one of the major things that we can do to make sure that we do have the buy-in and the understanding and the community behind us on it.
Okay, so if any of you want to come over to my house and explain how this is going to work, I'd welcome you to come. But Councillor Swift.
Well, you know, garbage collection is one of our core services. And I know Cumberland got some negative press when they changed. That was way back in 2014, I believe. And I think our residents would be happiest with having the garbage or the organics and the recycling every week and garbage bi-weekly. So I know, I guess the question is, do we want to save 1.9% in the taxes? So I would prefer to have the recycling every week and the organics every week.
So if that's your pleasure, then we would need a motion. We do have a motion on the floor, I guess, so we need to defeat that motion. So any other questions on this?
Yeah, I'd just like to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking, I know there's a lot of tax increases coming up. And I mean, if we could balance some of that with like reducing taxes by, what is it, like close to, 2%, I think that's pretty significant. And I think residents would be, like, I understand Councillor Swift's point, but I feel like residents would be more happy with lower taxes. And considering like the average household is probably, less than 2 within the town of Comox, it seems like bi-weekly recycling is probably sufficient. So I'm not sure what the rest of council thinks, but I would go for the option that does save money, just in the interest that, we are seeing quite a bit next year, because we did do a lower tax rate this year. And then we have the asset management, we have the policing, we have a lot of stuff coming up next year. So offsetting it by 2% makes already a huge, huge difference between the 5%, the 7%, or the 9%, right? And I know we had a big argument this year between 0, 2, and 3, and that's what we're talking about here. $23.
Yeah. Okay. This won't come without its controversy. I think that just in watching other communities, it's always a tough change for people. And so one of the rationales that I have is that you could, if you went to the weekly recycling, it's a bit of a compromise. And if it shows that it's working, we could always make a further change later down the road. Just my thoughts. And then Pat?
Yeah, just with respect to Acting Mayor Grant's household size, I agree with Councillor Bissinger. We just had a regional housing assessment, and I think the average was 2.3 or 1.9. And so I don't think it's onerous on our citizens to collect for an extra week in recycling and organics. And I think it's a huge tax savings. And so I would vote against this amendment.
You did see my picture at Christmas of all the recycling out front, did you?
I just think you're doing a wonderful job of recycling, and I think maybe you just need to create a new bin somewhere that would store all the recycling. We're a society that just keeps, not you Acting Mayor Grant, but we're a society that keeps buying more and more stuff. We need to buy less, and we need to really be conscious of where we're going.
Yeah, Amazon's killing us. Okay, Nicole, go ahead.
Just a comment that I would support the bi-weekly garbage and weekly recycling, even though there is that 2% tax savings. I think for many people, waste management and controlling that in their household is kind of a major item. Like we talked about rec center or library, I think waste management is something we deal with every day, and every single resident does. So I think to make the transition smoother, that makes sense. And I also think it's very important to make sure we're encouraging composting and recycling and not saying, well, just take everything to the dump because you have to go every 2 weeks. So I would strongly support, even though there is that 2% that we're not saving, that we do give at least some solution and encouragement.
Okay, so I guess the way this will go is if you want to vote for this, then you vote for it. If you don't, you vote against it, and then we'll bring another, and then I think Councillor Swift would probably bring an amendment. So, Jordan?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're clear. There's no amendment on the table right now. The motion right now would be for the recommendation. So
yes.
There's no amendment on the table.
Correct. So if you don't like it, you vote against it. If you do like it, you vote for it. And then we'll deal with the subsequent after. So all those in favor? So, damn tie. Okay, and all those opposed?
That's what I was going to say. You can either move through the vote and see if anybody changes their mind on the alternative, or this is something you'll have to wait for Mayor Arnott to return in August and cast the deciding vote. We can let him know to think about it over there.
Check out his garbage.
Well, okay, so a tie vote, is that not a defeated vote then?
It's defeated. And
Right.
I'm just saying, I would imagine the alternative would end up at the same, and maybe somebody's changes
Yes.
their mind though. I don't
So we could then go through the process of bringing the alternative.
Let's go through the process.
Okay, there we are.
So I'd like to move the alternative to the recommendation.
Which is bi-weekly garbage and weekly recycling.
Yes.
Okay, so have we
And
got a
weekly
seconder for
garbage.
that? We have a second. Okay, and then all those in favor of that?
Oh,
Oh, sorry, discussion. Sorry, I missed the discussion. Sorry, I'm so excited about garbage. Go ahead, Stephanie.
So this is, I just making sure this, if this gets struck down, like if we don't commit to anything, what happens? We just stay.
Well, go ahead, Jordan, but I think we wait for Russ to get back, do we not? Yeah, and then we bring it up again. And then I was going to call you Stephanie Nicole.
What's her name?
What's her name down the hall?
I just want to make a comment that per household, it's $23 for 26 extra pickups, which works out to like 90 cents for that extra pickup. And so I understand that we always line item everything and it goes into, we could say that about everything, but I think considering we're greatly charging people or changing the weekly garbage pickup, I think the cost of those extra 26 pickups using these numbers provided is extremely minimal. And I would love to see people that aren't recycling maybe have that ease of use every week.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So currently we have biweekly recycling. I'm not sure how reducing garbage pickup is going to increase people's recycling. I think people that are recycling are already doing it. The ones that aren't going to be doing it more. So I don't know why we need to increase the recycle. Like, I'm not going to produce more recycling. So to me, basically the truck is just going to stop by my house every week now for one recycling bin instead of the two that I usually put out every 2 weeks. I don't see one contributing to the other. It doesn't make sense. If anything, we're increasing greenhouse gas emissions by having more pickups. So that's kind of counterproductive as well to the whole idea of composting. So I think, and yeah, sure, $23 is, not a lot. Personally, like for me, it's not a lot, but for a lot of people, like we had that huge discussion. That's like a 2%, like we increased our taxes by 2% this year, considering COVID, and now we're talking about, reducing it by 2%. Like, why would we not do that if we can? Like $23 is $23 on top of everything else, on top of every other percentage. And, we had an argument of, $7, and I got quoted a million times about a Starbucks coffee, but here we go again with $23, right? 2% is 2%. So I think we need to look at that. For me, it's not, I'm not going to recycle more because I have less garbage pickup. Like whatever can be recycled is going into the recycling bin. And I think most people in the town of Comox are already practicing that.
So I guess for me anyway, it's just the sheer volume of stuff. I mean, we have a patio that is chock-a-block full of stuff, and until garbage day comes, and if you double that stuff, it's going to be all over the front yard. So for us, it's just a pure volume issue.
Yeah,
With all due respect,
with respect to you, Acting Mayor Grant, like I know, for a large household, you can buy additional garbage tags, right? Like they're whatever, $2.50 or whatever for that extra bag. And I think your circumstance, like amazing that there are so many people living in that household, but I think it's very, it's a very one-off for a lot of.
Not the norm, I get that. Go ahead, Nicole.
I hate to say this, but just as a process question, if Councillor Bissinger's comments had changed my opinion, are we able to go back to the motion on the table? I'm not saying it has, I'm just asking for process if we've already defeated something.
So you could do it through a motion for reconsideration, and in a motion and reconsideration, somebody who was in the winning side of the vote can move it for reconsideration. So because it was defeated and you voted against, you would be on the winning side, so you could move the motion for reconsideration.
Okay. So where does that leave us? No more questions. So all those in favor of the motion to go for bi-weekly garbage and weekly recycling? So we have our 3. And all those opposed? And we have our 3. So
I'd like to move the motion for reconsideration.
So can we do that? Okay, so if we move the motion for reconsideration, that would be bi-weekly garbage, bi-weekly recycling, and weekly yard waste and organics. And Jordan?
Yeah, so I'll jump in. So there's 2 steps to a motion for reconsideration. The first step is council voting on whether or not you want to reopen the first debate. And then that motion will come back on the table. So the first vote is whether or not you want to reopen the debate on the first question. And we still need a second.
Okay, so we need a seconder.
Second.
Okay, so we have a seconder, and then any discussion on whether we want to reopen the debate? Not seeing any. So all those in favor of reopening the debate? You're gonna have to put a hand up, or you're not putting your hand up?
Are we reopening the debate, or are we voting in
We're
favor?
voting to see if we want to reopen the debate. So all those in favor? And then all those opposed? And you have to have a vote. You can't abstain.
So that would be a vote in the affirmative if she hasn't voted.
Then I'm voting in affirmative.
So you're voting to reopen the debate. Okay, so now we've reopened the debate. So do we need to bring the original motion back?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think if it's already on the table or it needs to be put on the table. Maybe let's just put it on the table.
Let's just put it back on the table. So the new motion would be bi-weekly garbage collection, bi-weekly recycling collection, and weekly yard waste and organic collection.
Moved.
So I'm going to move that. And second. And we have Councillor Bissinger.
Oh, no, I was just seconding. sir.
Oh, you're already.
I'm in favor.
Okay, I don't think we need a whole lot of discussion on that. So all those in favor? Pat, what are you doing?
Oh, I put my hand up.
Oh, you put your hand up? Okay, so we have 4 in favor and all those opposed. So that motion now passes. Correct? There we are. Okay, so there we go. Our new communications person is going to have a good beginning week here. I think we got a couple of doozies for her, so we'll see what she's made of. And we'll move on to planning report, RZ 20-2, zoning map and housekeeping updates. And so if someone wants to move that.
Move.
And then Marvin, did you want to speak to this at all? Or are you happy with it? Okay, so any discussion? Being no discussion, so we'll move number 1, which is to give zoning bylaw amendment 1957 first reading.
So moved.
And then discussion on that, and all those in favor. And that's carried, and then we'll move on to second reading.
Moved.
And someone want a second?
Second.
Second, and then discussion, and all those in favor. And that's carried. And then we will, the other one is to book a public hearing.
Move.
Sorry? Oh, to waive the, I'm sorry, I missed that. So notice to waive the public hearing.
Move.
Move. And then a seconder. I saw a couple of hands go up.
I'll second.
Okay, and then all those in favor.
No discussion.
No discussion. Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you. What is the impact of waiving the public hearing for this housekeeping? Is it minimal? Like, what is the, I don't see much happening why we would need a public hearing for this, but maybe I would like to hear staff speak to it.
Okay, Jordan, do you want to go, or Marvin's standing up behind you? Let's put Marvin on the hot seat again. Go ahead, Marvin.
The only difference would be simply that there wouldn't be holding of a public hearing. So the Local Government Act allows you to waive a public hearing where the zoning is in accordance with the official community plan. There is a protection in there in terms of course, the notice goes out and we do see written submissions. on that, but then it would be for the council. So there is still an avenue of public input.
And then Jordan wanted to add to that.
Yeah, and just the recommendation to waive the public hearings because we don't think that there's anything controversial in the housekeeping. It's just clarification. So if we thought that there would be some level of community interest, we would still hold it. But given that it's mostly clarifications, we don't think that there will be interest in this.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I guess the only issue, and I can't see it coming up in this case, would be if someone were affected by this and then they come back and say, well, you didn't even have a public hearing, you did it in secret, blah, blah, that's,
And then
you know, that's the only downside we would.
they can still submit written comments.
Yeah.
We'll still put the
Yeah,
notice out.
so we'd still be good that way. So any other discussion? We just lost Pat.
No, I'm back.
Are you back?
I just had to move some light. That's all.
Doing some Pilates there. Okay, so all those in favor?
Wish.
And that passes, and we can move on to correspondence now. For receipt is Pat McNaughton, Comox Archives and Museums. Mountain, sorry.
Move to receive.
And any discussion on that? And all those in favor? That's carried. We'll move on to Bruce Gibbons, Merville Water Guardians for receipt.
Move to receipt.
Second.
And discussion? And all those in favor? And I'm not going to try this next one, but Brenda Butterworth Carr regarding public safety and Solicitor General RCMP Auxiliary Program Tier 3 for receipt.
Move to receive.
And discussion? Jordan?
I responded back that Comox would like to participate in this program. The funds are already within the RCMP budget. There's not going to be any additional funds requested. It's quite a small cost too.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So all those in favor? And that's carried, and we'll move on to Earlene Cameron with drive-through noise for receipt.
Moved.
And discussion on this?
Discussion?
Okay, we'll start. Oh, hang on, we'll start with Nicole, we'll get you.
Thank you.
Oh, she's passed. Go ahead, Pat.
So does our noise bylaw cover drive-throughs, starting at 5 a.m.? Is there not a noise bylaw that is 7 a.m.? Like, would drive-throughs be encompassing in that?
Jordan?
So you're allowed to, on the property, basically use the noise that would be reasonably expected from that type of business use. So our noise bylaw would not cover the sound coming out of the drive-through. I'm gonna see if Marvin nodded said yes or no with that, but I believe that would be the case.
Correct. So you couldn't restrict the operation to have no drive-through. Hours of operation is something separate.
So I think in this case, if I read the letter correctly, I think we did, at some point, someone spoke to them and they were able to turn the noise down for a time and then turned it back up. So perhaps another conversation with them on that could solve this issue for a bit.
Yeah, I agree with Acting Mayor Grant. Can we send a letter that says, you're close to violation of the noise bylaw, you need to turn it down? You need to angle your speaker lower, you need to try and do something?
I'm sure we can do that. And that would, I'm sure that, and that's probably just a matter, of course, we would just do that. We don't need to direct anyone to jump on that, do we? No? Okay, there you go. So we'll just have that done.
Thank you.
And then Nicole.
Yeah, it was just a quick comment. I've been in that area and building quite a few times, and it's extremely unusually loud. Like, you can just hear what everybody's saying on the business side. And I think if we can only hear the business side but not the person, there's definitely something we can do.
Yeah. Okay.
Just supporting that. It's not a petty thing. It's
Yep.
an actual.
Perfect. All right. So all those in favor of receipt? And that's carried. And then we'll move on to systematic racism for receipt.
Move.
Second.
And any discussion on that? Stephanie?
How would we go about looking at our policies to ensure that there is no systemic racism involved? Is that something that is like, what's the scope of taking on something like that?
Jordan?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I don't know. I can say that looking over the town's hiring practices, we are an equal opportunity employer. But you know, when you're talking about the type of systemic racism that's being mentioned in this report, it's how do the rules that you set impact different people disproportionately? We don't have, I would suspect, we don't even have the beginnings of the data to begin to ask those questions. If we wanted to really take a look at that, we would have to, I believe, start on a fairly lengthy and expensive data collection process. How much that would cost, I don't know, but that's what I think would be the first area that would have to start. Now, that's not to say that we don't look through our HR policies. We don't look through the way our bylaws are imposed and try and do them in a fair manner. But to understand that question, we just don't even have the beginnings of the data.
All right. And we got anyone else? All those in favor of receipt? That's carried. We'll move on to Richard Curtin, Pride Society of the Comox Valley Pride Flag Raising.
Move receipt. Second.
And then discussion. Pat.
Somehow I ended up on mute. Maybe it's just God telling me to shut up, but
No, I did that to you.
Thank you. I recommend the action. I recommend raising our pride flag on July 22nd.
So this is kind of an interesting letter because we have a lot of requests for flags and flag raising, and what I think we generally raise the pride flag in August, do we not? I believe is how we've done it in the past. So if we want to change that to this week, we could do that. Or Jordan, you talked about a bit of a policy for flag raising, because I know First Nations are got pretty excited when we put their flag up. So there may be some changes that need to be made. Did you want to just talk about that?
Yeah, in general, I think that a flag raising policy that kind of identifies what council wants done on a yearly basis, so it's not having to come up continuously, and there's always the chance that it gets missed or forgotten or slipped through the cracks. So if we have a policy that lays out where and when, but that doesn't address this one. This one is coming to council and to what Councillor McKenna was saying on your recommendation. I think that's a great way to go about it. If you want to have the flag raised at this date and time, is make that recommendation and get a council second, and we'll move forward.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at this and wondering, we generally do this in August and they're asking for a different date. So would we look to do this for the week they're asking for as well as August, or in lieu of, and maybe Shelley can give us some guidance there.
If I may, I believe that we raised the flag in August on the request of Comox Valley Pride.
Okay.
And so, for whatever reason, it seems that they are asking for a different date.
So they're just asking for a different date. Okay, and then Nicole.
Yeah, my question was going to be, was it them that we raised it with last year's group? Because I believe there is two different societies, and they have similar names, and so I don't know what the policy would be on that. But if we did decide to raise it earlier, I know like MP Rachel Blaney was there, and so if then we got another letter from, I could be mistaken, but I was wondering if it was this exact group that we did in August, because then it makes sense to move the date at their request. But
right, we can clarify that
to make sure we don't eliminate
Yeah.
traditional, whoever the request has come from traditional. Would be my only note.
So Pat, did you want to make a motion then to raise the pride flag June 20th to, I believe it says 27th?
I think it's July. And yes,
July,
I'll make a motion to raise it on July 22nd at 9 a.m.
I think it says 20th in the letter. Or
Sorry, I'm trying to find
22nd.
my
Okay, 22nd. Yeah.
trying to find my agenda, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying.
July 22nd, 2020 at 9 a.m.
Okay. So, does someone want to second that?
And that it would remain raised until Monday, July 27th.
Okay. And someone want to second that? Okay. And discussion? And all those in favor? And that passes, and my agenda has disappeared off my tablet, so I have no idea where we're at now.
We're receiving G. David Grove, the Victoria Electric Vehicle Association right to charge.
So, yeah, okay, so motion to receive David Grove's Electric Car Association right to charge.
Move.
Second.
And discussion on that? And all those in favor? And that's carried, and then we'll move on to Andrea Capelli, Comox Valley Coalition and Homelessness, Comox Valley 2020 homeless count preliminary data for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
And any discussion on that? So I would just note that I was at a Zoom meeting with Andrea and the vulnerable population, and there is a move afoot. They're going to be bringing 10 more people to the Port Augusta Hotel. So that will be starting very soon and running through September, and that's the provincial government. We will be meeting sometime next week with the mall owners and the BIA, and Andrea will be there, and a few others, just to discuss how that's going to go. So thought I'd just let you know that. And
Has that already happened by chance in the last meeting?
they may have started. Yeah, I think it has started. I know, I know a few businesses owners have seen, garbage and cans being taken. And so I think there may be something going on a little bit earlier here.
It'd be nice in future, like there was some, or like I noticed some things, and I'm not trying to make any accusations, but it was always good to get that information beforehand, so the BIA.
Well, in this case, we actually did get a little bit of notice. I mean, I guess this was our notice as opposed to last time where it just kind of happened. And, one of the differences this time is that there is going to be some support for some of this, although, they do that at the junction in Courtenay too. And if you follow their council meetings, they've had lots of problems around the junction as well. So I don't know. I think that's probably not going to help us out a great deal. But I think that we probably need to look at a bit of a strategy on how this is going to go. I watched the province, and they're going around buying hotels. And of course, if they purchase that hotel someday, or got the notion that they would, that could change our town quite dramatically. So, it's something we should probably discuss. But we'll be having a meeting with them, and we'll have Tom Curvers there as well, and just sort of hash this out a little bit and see where we get to, and then report back to you guys. So, having said that, is there any further discussion? And seeing none, all those in favor? And then we have for receipt Ron Weber, Director of Comox Valley Affordable Housing Society, 1582 Balmoral letter of support.
Move to receive.
And I think they're asking us for a letter of support. Sorry, I've lost my stuff, so I don't know. But I think there's so did you want to receive and give them?
And I'll move the action as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Second.
Okay. So any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And then Jordan just took the agenda away. So that's quite all right.
You're on to late items.
Late items. Yes, okay, so we do have some opportunity for meetings with ministers at UBCM. And so this is kind of a time where if you had something you wanted to meet with a minister, typically what we've done is the mayor and staff have, asked for comment on this and then gone down and actually met with them. Just in my practice with this and in talking with Jordan, if you have some projects or something that you want to push through, if you've really got things sort of shovel ready and set to go and you're needing just a little bit more, this is a good time for that. If you're trying to bring something brand new to the table, you're probably not going to get a lot of success. So I know staff have a few things that they want to bring, and perhaps this Port Augusta Hotel thing could be something that we could discuss with them and just see what their future plans are and what they're really trying to get to. So that might be one item we could do. But if you have something, what would you recommend we do here? Do you want me to take suggestions from people or give them a little bit of time to think of things? And then go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, so I think that you do have time to take a look at it. UBCM, you know what, you can use minister meetings for different ways. I found the most successful if you actually want action is if you can come to the province with something, you know, plan 75% complete and show them where their little bit of support will allow you to accomplish something. You can usually get action from them a lot easier. But you do have the opportunity to use these meetings simply to talk to ministers you normally would not have access about issues that you normally don't get to talk to them about, right? So there's still that opportunity. It depends how council wants to structure them. Some councils will structure it that all of council will get together, you'll decide on those issues together and you'll move forward together, and you can also just allow people to request the meetings that they want to structure. How you want to do that is completely up to council. There are some things that we're having a staff meeting on it tomorrow. I know that Shelley A wants to bring the grant requests that we're creating that are going to go through, we're submitting to the province to have meetings on those just to give them heads up on what we're doing and why we want them to increase the success. One item I would like to bring to the province is that with COVID happening, this has been a frustration of mine prior to COVID, but even more after, the requirement of some provincial and some federal infrastructure grants that they will only fund projects if it is new construction. And I think at this time when municipalities are struggling to try and meet our infrastructure needs, that the province and Fed should be stepping up and allowing us to use those grants to replace aging infrastructure. One of the benefits of those grants that only allow new infrastructure is it's a new project which the feds and province get to put big signs up and tell the communities how much they're investing in them, which is great. But right now we need help in maintaining the infrastructure we have. So that is something I would like to raise with them, is to encourage them to allow us to use those grants to replace our aging infrastructure.
Yeah, and you know, if you think of something like our playground down here in the park, the old one by the Blackfin, you know, if we wanted to replace that, and we had some thoughts of that at one point, you couldn't use this grant for that. But if you went for a brand new one in on the other side, you probably could. So it really, you know, your point is well taken on that. And so Pat, you had your hand up.
Yeah, couple things. I think it would behoove us to have a staff recommendation of what you wanted to take to UBCM. The other question I have is, I'm not even sure who's attending UBCM on behalf of the town of Comox this year.
It's virtual this year.
So yeah, so it's a virtual meeting, and when you do these minister meetings, in the past anyway, I haven't done a COVID one, but they're a bit like speed dating. So you get about 15 minutes, and you know, the last one I went to was about the new water treatment plant, and we were getting pressured by the health department, you know, being threatened with fines of hundreds of thousands of dollars a day if we didn't hit a target, and yet we were waiting for the province to give us grant money. So, you know, we went and sat, and when we explained that to him, he went, oh, and within 2 weeks, it was all done.
Yeah, no, I agree. The process is great. I don't actually know who's attending UBCM.
Yeah. Well,
so
if we have some items that we want to put on to the ministers, I think that we can attend it. You know, I mean, that's one of the reasons to go to that, right, or to be a part of that. So you're all
yeah.
Yeah, with this year's UBCM, because it's going to be virtual, I think what would happen is as we get the minister meeting times confirmed, it would go out to all of council. We'd probably set up a decent audiovisual in the council chambers, most likely, and then whoever's able or interested to come attend those meetings would come and attend. So it would just be based on council's availability.
So you don't have to be an active registrant?
No.
I don't think you would this year, no. And
okay,
then
very good.
Would this be a platform that you could bring back the concept that you submitted to UBCM on the property transfer tax, having partial allocation to affordable housing? I think it's crazy that they haven't adjusted that with.
Yeah, this is a bit of a different format than that. This is sitting down one-on-one with a minister looking for help on a certain project or something that you would be trying to accomplish. Whereas what you're talking about is more of a resolution. So I think they're kind of, kind of two different things. Yeah, I think that you have to be a little bit careful in these, that you don't try and jam too much into them. As I say, you've got 15 minutes, and you know, you've got to get really focused, get a good presentation, and really hit them somewhere where they can see some sense in it, or you're just talking to a blank wall, really. So, we don't want to overdo it, but if we have some items, I think Jordan's is a good one. I think maybe the Port Augusta is another one. And if you guys want to get back to, I'm just trying to think, because Russ is going to come and take over here a bit. But if you wanted to get back to me with some of these things, I can bring them to Jordan, and then we can sort of discuss, and we'll be in touch with you to see what the best way to move forward with that is. What's the drop dead date on this one? We need by
August 4th. So that goes to the process what process council wants. Either we're looking at scheduling a special meeting next week where people can bring the ideas and you guys all talk about it and decide what you want to do moving forward, or as Acting Mayor Grant said, you just pass on your request to him, and then I'll make the request based on what he collects.
So what do you guys think? Is that a good way to do it, or do you want to have a special meeting to discuss some of these ideas?
I wouldn't mind having either an additional meeting or just more information. I know you keep on referring to the Port Augusta, but I don't think, I'm not in support of, converting our only hotel into something going forward. So I'm not sure exactly what the, what the information surrounding that is, or what the idea is that what do you want to bring forward to the minister or what, but I think it'd be good, if we could, even if Jordan had some ideas or with staff, bring them forward and let's chat about it, whether it's at a regular council meeting or a special meeting.
Yeah, the issue with the Port Augusta is an interesting one, because, I have my views and everyone has their own, but it really needs to be a council decision if we want to do something on that. But my thoughts on it are to just get some clarity as to what they're doing and what their plans are, and if they have future plans. Because I know if I owned that hotel and somebody came and offered me a whole bunch of money for it, I'd be so gone, right? And then our community is changed forever if that happens. And we don't really have a lot of say other than perhaps an opportunity like this and some phone calls. So did you want to look at scheduling a meeting to discuss some of these issues, or?
Yeah, I'm available next week if.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to chat more about that whole Port Augusta thing. I think.
Okay, so I would say that if you have some issues that you'd like to bring, is getting them by Friday. Is that fair, staff? So if you got them to us by Friday, then we could have a special meeting next Wednesday at 4:15, committee of the whole meeting. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, what time? Sorry?
Oh, 4:15, does that work? So like a cow meeting only.
Yeah.
Yeah, just trying to make it work for everybody. So that works for everybody? That never happens. All right, something's wrong here. Okay, so we don't need to make a resolution on that, do we? Or?
Call a special meeting? No.
Yeah. Nope.
So what I would just ask for, just for the benefit of the fellow councillors, if you submit to myself or Shelley just a topic that you want to bring to UBCM and maybe a little bit of background information so your fellow councillors can kind of wrap their heads around it before we get to the meeting, because we are going to need to make some final decisions at that meeting at what we want to bring to UBCM, and I will make sure to have staff's list of UBCM topics and reasons for it as well.
Okay, so if you do have an issue, send it to Jordan or Shelley, leave me out of it, because I'll just be in the way at that point. So if we're going to have a special meeting, just send them directly to one of these two. I see we have the old gray mare standing outside. Yeah, he's scared. Yeah. So, is he locked out? We've locked him out. Yeah, he's
Oh, he's just standing up.
he's standing at the door.
Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving.
Okay, so moving right along, and then the other issue, sorry, my tablet went dead there for a bit and I'm back, so I'm just trying to find where we are here.
We are at right here. Reports from members.
Yeah, so, okay, so council member reports. Has anyone got any?
I can go first.
So you want to go first, Pat?
Yeah, I can go first.
Yeah,
so
go
I attended a subdivision site visit with Acting Mayor Grant up at the Connemara subdivision. It was an interesting site visit to look at something that'll come to us at some point. And there's been a history up there, but I think it sounds like all the neighbors are now working together up there. So I think it's going to be a really positive thing coming. I've got a community justice meeting as well tomorrow, and then did a little visioning exercise on what Comox 2040 looks like with a couple other counselors that were there as well for the Comox Valley Collective magazine. It was pretty interesting. So that's where I was.
Right, perfect. And we might as well stay on the Zoom. So Alex.
Attended that same meeting there with the CV Collective. Also, I can't remember if we mentioned it but the last solid waste meeting, we I guess got a bit more timelines on the composting facility up in Campbell. So by September, we should know the design bid or the design bid builder process will be out for tender, I guess. So we should know fairly soon who's getting it. And then there'll be some public consultation in January. And that's it.
Okay, and then Nicole, did you want to go next?
Yeah, the Comox 2040 editioning, and then Comox Strathmore Waste Management, which Alex just spoke to, and then the Vancouver Library Board executive.
All right, and then Stephanie.
Attended the Museum Archives board meeting. They received their gaming grant and are looking at reopening in Stephenville Ellis Gallery sometime in early August. I attended a drug strategy workshop that was 3 days divided regarding the systems change, which could be quite interesting when thinking about Port Augusta and the future there. Food Policy Council and these food disruption subcommittees, they've got resolutions that passed because of the CBRD to go to UDCM regarding food supply during emergencies and farmers during emergencies. Also attended the CV Collective meeting for 2040 visioning, and met with Sam Craney about his housing project. And that's it.
Fair enough. And then Maureen.
All right. I attended the sewer, water, sports, and CBRD regular board meeting yesterday. The sewer meeting, after about 14 years of discussions, we finally come up with a contract with DND over sewer rates and so on. So everybody's really happy about that. The other thing is there's going to be a letter come to the municipalities to encourage the use of Skyrocket rather than the organic compost for our gardening needs. I know Skyrocket was not that great when it first came out. I believe there have been some improvements, and I spoke to Andrew and he was really hoping to continue with the organic. So I guess we'll just see what happens with that. All the services at the regional district are going through a COVID response and renewal, and they're looking for ways of saving money all over the place. One of the things they're considering is keeping their vehicles for 7 years rather than 5. So that's one of the initiatives. And in the sports commission, we voted to purchase, even though it's more expensive, but to purchase an electric ice resurfacer. So they're going to be looking for bids for that in the early in the new year, and then we will be replacing our old Zamboni, which has really done a lot of service past its best before date. At the board level, we have the songbird nesting presentation, as well as Alana's presentation, and we have a transit update, and we're going to go back. We've been on summer scheduling, and we're going to go back to work towards back to the 100% scheduling, so the schedules will gradually come back. And an air quality coordinator has been hired. It's Kina Sustainability, and there's many stakeholder groups, and they're going to be sending out invitations to that. But they are also looking for 6 members of the public that aren't associated with any of the stakeholder groups to also be part of this larger group. And there's going to be an application online at the CVRD. And that's my report.
All right. Well, I guess for me, I attended the Airport Commission Headhunters meeting. As you know, Fred Bigelow is not well and they're looking for a replacement. So they phoned me up just to see what the town's perspective on a new leader for them would be. And basically, I told them that we would like to continue to have a good relationship that we've had, that we'd like to work with them on parking and if they can work on upgrading services and getting more frequent flights, that's something that would look at that. But basically that we had a pretty good relationship with them and we would look to continue that. I've been on the economic development contract negotiating team, so we had 3 meetings with that, which I think has now come to a conclusion, and we'll have more on that in the in-camera portion. I'm also on the economic task force, and we had 2 meetings on that. We're slowly moving along. There's some issues there that need to be resolved. One is the task force isn't funded, so that's one issue. And we've got all sorts of little support groups that are doing their thing, but we have 49 of them, and I think my opinion is it's too big and it's really quite unwieldy. So I think there's some things that we're going to need to look at to streamline the process to make it work, because throughout this, there will be some winners and losers in this. And of course, every group that's out there, the 49 all think they've got the best idea, and yet some of them are just not going to get what they want. So I think there's a little more work to do just in getting that set up and ready to go. And then I also believe they need access to some funding so that they can actually support some of the things as they come through. And currently, there is no funding, so that has to go to the RD board to be put together properly so that we can move forward with that. So that's those were my comments on that. I attended the mayor's lunch. I also attended a meeting on vulnerable population, and that's when they talked about the 10 new people coming to the Port Augusta. So more on that as we move forward. Pat and I met with Kelly Clausen up on Comerica, or whatever the heck that name is. I also attended the sewer, water, sports, and the RD meetings yesterday, and a couple of things at the sewer was the public consultation schedule for the new sewer line that's going, it's going to come through our town and probably end up in Marina Park and then go up through to Brent Road. I've had a few calls on that lately just because they were drilling test holes and just trying to determine routes. And so people are interested. If you do get calls on that, the best thing to do is just phone the RD and send them to Chris LaRose. He's the guy in charge, and he'll be happy to answer any of those questions. Good news in the water, as Maureen said, they're going through every service and trying to look for some efficiencies. And something we voted through was a reduction in our bulk water rates to the community. So currently we're 83. They're going to reduce them to 80 cents until 2023, at which time they'll jump to 96 cents. That'll save us about $500,000 in the water, but we'll still be able to put about $350,000 into reserves if we do that. And it's interesting to note that that money is to the town, not to the end user. So one of the discussions that we had was, if we go to 80 cents and then all of a sudden we jump it by 16 cents, that's a big jump, but we still have the control over what we charge. So we can either take that money and pocket it, we can jump it up slowly. I mean, I leave it to Clyde to figure out the best way to use it. But the good news is that there's some savings coming in that in the next short term. So the other one was changes to stage 4. Some of the things we learned through stage 4, and stage 4 is really onerous restrictions, and it was when our water pipe broke that we brought it in. We've only ever done it. That's the first time ever. And so they learned a lot of things. So we made some changes to that just to make it easier and more streamlined. We had the Glacier Kings come to the Sports Commission looking for $50,000 for a new dressing room. You talked about the electric Zamboni and transit, and I also attended Lara Grizzly's retirement party. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't have a welcome to Comox party. So that was kind of interesting. It was kind of like the elephant dance amongst the pigeons there, because they're all feeling bad that she's leaving because she's a really great employee, and yet we're the beneficiaries. So yeah, so that was kind of one of those bittersweet things to do, and that was just today. So so that's my report. So we have no media questions, no public questions, unless you have some questions. Did you go next door? Is there a big party going on?
Can I just make a comment?
Go ahead.
I think as we continue electronically, we are going to have to figure out a way how we, I don't know, or make a policy around engaging with the public during our live presentation, because there are comments, and I'm just not sure how to take those questions at the end electronically. So I think that is something that our council will need to figure out, because there are comments on the Facebook Live, and some comments from residents are stating like, you know, how do you engage with this meeting, you know?
Okay, so I'll let Jordan talk about that.
So what we're planning is to set up an email address that would allow people during the council meetings to send an email to us. It would have to state who they are, what their question is, and then we would read that out during the public question period, and council would answer them from there.
Excellent.
So that's what we're planning.
Yeah.
Pardon?
It's already set up.
It's already set up, so
Okay.
we'll just need to make sure that we're letting people know how to do it.
Just more for our new communications person when she gets here.
Yeah, I think it's important, like if they're engaging through Facebook Live, which is seems to be our main medium, then they know how to comment and ask the question.
Yeah, that's fair, because, you know, I find that when you're doing the Facebook thing during the meeting, if you're following it on your phone, it can kind of, it's kind of akin to somebody from the audience coming passing you notes, right? So how much I like that, but having questions that come at the end where we can put them on a proper format is probably a pretty good way to do it. So
Yeah, I would think that somebody else, not a counselor, should be monitoring the feed. I was just curious as to see what the feed looked like while the meeting was happening, so. And it's not a Scottish flag, whoever made that comment. It's a Nova Scotian flag.
I was going to say, I did not think we permitted the commenting on the live Facebook streams. I thought we had disabled that previously, and that would be probably our intent moving forward, and then opening up the ability for questions to come at the end of the meeting. Similar, and listen, this is something council could change if you don't want to, but it would be similar to the idea that if you had people attending in person, we wouldn't be allowing the conversations to take place between people at that point either.
Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, no, that's fair. I know, doesn't the RD do it on YouTube or something? Yeah, I think so. Okay. All right, fair comment. So I think we've got that covered. So we'll move to excluding the public to go into.
I just want to recognize something, Ken. I want to recognize Acting Mayor Grant for taking the role and sitting in the seat and helping us through while Mayor Arnott recovered. You did an excellent job, and I just want to recognize that.
Well, thank you, but he's not taking over quite yet. I'm not giving up the reins till the end of the month. So he's,
well, I guess we just scheduled. This is my last public opportunity that I thought maybe this was my last public opportunity to recognize you. So,
yeah, well, thank you for that. Appreciate that. So if you'd like to, we need a motion to move into in camera.
Second.
And discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay, so we'll take a bit of a break while we shut everything down, and away we go.